on potential biotechnological approaches towards ecosystem restoration. As the Department of Biotechnology has supported major activities aligned with the thematic focus, the webinar has been planned to showcase DBT's activities and interventions, as well as the achievements made by principal investigators who are beneficiaries of DBT-supported programs. I extend a warm welcome to Secretary DBT and would like to specially thank him for his leadership and guidance for providing quick support to materialize the thoughts into events on the ground. And World Environment Day webinar is one of the products of his guidance that DBT started to celebrate since last year. I welcome Joint Secretary DBT and thank DBT administration for their active involvement in organizing this year's webinar. I welcome the renowned teacher, conservationist, herpetologist, and wetland resources expert, Professor B.C. Chowdhury, the first generation wildlife biologist of India. After a long stint of 30 years with the Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun, he retired as a senior professor in the year 2012. Professor Chowdhury is currently serving as a senior advisor and consultant with some of the leading wildlife conservation and management organizations nationally as well as globally. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Professor A.B. Pandit, Vice Chancellor, Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai, who needs no introduction when it comes to chemical engineering and allied fields. He has made extensive contribution on waste management that has paved the way to adopt this as an environment-friendly lifestyle. Falling under the bucket of top 2% of scientists in the world, as announced by Stanford University, California, Professor Pandit is the creme de la creme of the professionals in the field. He's also a member of the Board of Governors at IIT Bombay and the Heavy Water Board at the Department of Atomic Energy. He'll be sharing his learnings and recommendations for waste management and environment-friendly lifestyle. I welcome the project investigators of DBT supported programs, Dr. Mahesh Shankaran, NCBS Bangalore, Dr. Piyush Pandey, Assam University Silchar, Dr. Punyaloke Bhaduri, IISER Kolkata, Dr. Maushmi Ganguly, Cotton University Guwahati, Dr. M.A. Shah, University of Kashmir, Srinagar, Dr. Krishna Ray, West Bengal State University. They'll be showcasing and presenting the achievements of the different restoration themes as part of World Environment Day celebrations today. I welcome all my colleagues from the Department of Biotechnology, DBT's autonomous institutions, stakeholders, students, community members who have joined us live today on YouTube. I welcome each one of you for this webinar, and without any further ado, I invite Joint Secretary DBT to present his talk on environment-friendly lifestyle. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So we have started to celebrate Environment Day from year 2023. So the Environment Day is celebrated at very large scale worldwide, and every year there is some specific host country. And this year, Saudi Arabia is the host country. However, there is little celebration for the nascent outcomes because everything is being driven by the scientific community, but nascent outcomes are not celebrated. Only cooked and processed stories are celebrated. So idea was to celebrate the outcomes given by the scientific community, and already we are supporting many projects. So sir, it's over to you. Thank you so much.
Respected Secretary DBT, senior officers from DBT, colleagues, and all the esteemed speakers and participants who are there online. I have been asked to give a talk or background rather on the environment-friendly lifestyle. That is Mission Life, which has been actually adopted by Government of India for ensuring sustainable development. So I'll just go into a brief background. I'll make a very short presentation or talk, and not a presentation, actually a talk. So today is the World Environment Day 2024, and I extend a very warm welcome to everyone on this occasion. The theme for this year's World Environment Day is land restoration desertification, and drought resilience. And the slogan that UN has given for today is "Our land, our future." We are hashtag Generation Restoration. So restoration is the focus. Just to give a brief background, uh, this celebration of this day started in 1972 by the UN at Stockholm Conference, where a conference was held starting from 5th of June in 72. And the key focus of this is actually environmental issues on marine pollution, overpopulation, global warming, sustainable development, wildlife crime, etc. As we are all aware that Honorable PM in COP26 in November 21, actually he announced life, that is lifestyle for environment, as a mass movement to be taken up by people rather than governments, and to ensure an environmentally conscious lifestyle. And he called such people as pro-planet people. And the idea is that by getting people involved on ground, we can make a big dent in this problem. And the focus is that instead of having a throwaway economy and use and throw, we actually focus on a circular economy, which anyway our country has been doing for a long time. So some of the data that I just wanted to actually share with you, like the projections are that 800 million to 3 billion people are projected to face chronic water scarcity due to drought if there's a 2% rise in global temperature across the world. So that is the scale of problem that we are actually expecting. And 18% of GDP of the global economy by 2050, if we don't take steps right now, mitigation steps, can be affected. So individual and community action, uh, I mean, in addition to whatever governments are doing, can make a big dent. That is the actual takeaway, and that is the whole focus of Mission Life. Like if one in every 8 person or people, if they adopt environment-friendly lifestyle, they could actually reduce or mitigate carbon emission by 20%. So that is the kind of scale that individuals can make a difference. And India has a very good track record as far as mass behavioral changes uh, envisaged. And we have many such programs where we can actually see that mass behavioral change has happened. And like Swachh Sagar, in 75 days, 75 beaches were actually cleaned of 15,000 tons of waste. So that is the kind of motivation and mass action that we are capable of. Under Swachh Bharat mission, more than 100 million toilets have been actually constructed in the last 7 years. And households with LPG is almost now 100% saturation. So that is the kind of mass movement and awareness that we can generate. Also, India has been already doing many sustainable traditional practices, like we have water harvesting structures. And if you go to places like Red Fort, you can see that uh, water actually used to be lifted from Yamuna through a very innovative kind of design, architectural design. So these are the kind of things which are already inbuilt into our economy and systems. And traditionally, we have been doing it. Like we have a lot of water harvesting structures, traditional ones, like in Johards are there in Rajasthan, and many such examples are there. So even biodegradable materials like earthen clayware, earthen cups, sal plates, these have been traditionally being used in India. Nothing new as far as we are concerned in adopting this kind of changes. And art architecture, if you look at many of the old buildings and architectures, like if you look at many old forts, many old buildings, uh, I mean, cooling and heating was actually water based. So that can save a lot of electricity. So these are actually just a few examples as to how we can actually achieve sustainable livelihoods. And the key pillars of mission life are actually three pronged. One is to address demand, then accordingly supply will change, and finally we have to take policy initiatives. So demand is the first step and first phase, and we need to focus on that. In fact, first 5 years are supposed to focus on demand, and every ministry department of government of India is supposed to actually uh, enmesh these these goals into their business, so that we can not only make schematic and pragmatic changes in whatever we do, but we also enthuse people. And we also, whatever is our target audience, we enthuse them to actually undertake such activities so that they become pro-planet people. So like in demand sector, there are many, 7 or 8 areas where we can actually make dents. And by making small changes, we can make a big difference. I'll give some examples later. Like energy is the first one, like using LED, using public transport, using cycle for coming to office, and not using electricity when people are not there, putting ACs at 24 or 25 degrees. These are the kind of changes that we can all do in our daily lives, and that can make a big dent. So like water, we need to save, because as I said, that water is a critical area and it's going to be affected. Single-use plastic is a big issue in India, and we have a lot of landfills. In fact, we don't have places now to where to put that, and it's not only choking our sewers, leading to flooding, but also it's going into oceans, and these don't degrade easily. Maybe 1,000 years, some of it takes to degrade. So we need to look at that. Sustainable foods. I won't go into detail because we have many esteemed speakers. Waste reduction, following eco-friendly lifestyle by not storing e-waste at home, but rather disposing it, which can be recycled. So some of the examples of such actions, like if you do it for 5 years, can give us tremendous amount of saving. Like if you don't use, if you switch off engines at traffic lights, in 5 years, we can actually save 22.5 billion kilowatts of energy. That is the kind of scale we are talking about. Turning off running taps, like when we are brushing or not using it actively, that can save up to 9 trillion liters of water. Using cloth bags, that can save us almost 375 million tons of solid waste that is being generated in form of plastic. And recycling e-waste, that can actually allow us to 0.75 million tons of e-waste can be recycled. And you know, a lot of valuable metals and other components are there which we use in e-waste that can be recycled. And composting waste food, which we are actually just throwing away in our homes, that can save almost 15 billion tons of food in 5 years. So that is the scale about which we are talking. And I'm sure biotechnology is also already doing a lot of intervention. I am not an expert, so I won't go into detail. Other speakers would be talking about that. I just wanted to give a background on Mission Life. Uh, we have a brick now, which is rationalized autonomous bodies, and our secretary has already asked them to initiate a green initiative, so as to ensure that all campuses follow this Mission Life objectives. So I'm sure that will be a good beginning, but we also need to intertwine all these objectives into our programs as far as possible. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for insights and to direct it on the associated values relevant to the mission life and alignment of the programs. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, we request, Secretary, sir, we request your remarks, sir. Thank you so much.
Namaskar and good morning to all of you in this room as well as on the screen whom I can see. I think thank you very much for all of you for joining on this wonderful occasion. I think this is one of the most important day, in my opinion, that we should celebrate with the highest amount of pomp and celebrations. Because primarily, I believe that without good environment and ecological life, we're never going to exist anyway. Human beings or all the life is going to be very difficult to survive. And I think from that perspective, this should be one of the highlight of the yearly events, not just to do a webinar, but also to, as our joint secretary just very nicely articulated actually about the details of the life mission of how to bring in practices in your life that really makes impactful interventions of the scale that we want to make it happen actually. And I think, therefore, this is a day to pause, reflect, and also take actions to save this amazing planet, what we are all looking forward to, actually. From our, I think I can see Professor Chaudhary and Professor Pandit online, and they are the experts actually in this area, will guide us through various activities and will provide us some very important messages as well. So I don't want to take a lot of time. We'll just say a few things of what department has been trying to do. There are also several PIs and director of institutions, and also many departmental people are there actually. And I think it's a very, very important time, as I always say, is to be able to make sure that we just don't get into the habit of doing webinars, but getting into the details of trying to make resolve. Everybody, each one of us can decide, take one decision that I will from today take it up to make sure that the message of World Environment Day is taken up further ahead. I think it will have a huge impact for it. So from the point of view, I think as everybody has talked about the generation, the hashtag generation restoration is a wonderful occasion. It's a nice hashtag, actually really tells you that what we really have to do actually. And I think DBT should hopefully have several tweets out today to support this hashtag activity with several messages. And I would request each one of the division, in fact, to come out in their own ways to come up with a hashtag tweet that supports this activity, so that it becomes an important. So I think from the department's perspective, we are through our various investigators who are here and various scientific activities, we are we are we are very much into doing research, doing innovation, and also looking into the demonstration activities of what we have been able to, take forward some of the research areas that are interesting to look at. I mean, one of the technology that I can talk to you about, which is very specific to the land restoration perspective, is the oil zapper technology that DBT supported about almost 7-8 years back, I think, and now it's a kind of a company called OTBL, which basically sells this technology, which is a company together made by Terry and ONGC together. And this is used for restoring land where oil spills happen. Now, it's a very simple method of using microbial consortium to eat up the oil and soak up all the activities and restore the lands that are actually for the fields of various farmers' fields are there. Earlier, what used to happen is that ONGC would drill various some of these wells and all, and the spillage of oil will in fact leave on the land, and then the only thing you would do is actually pay back to the farmers because we have spoiled their land and it will not happen. So I think you can really see how technological interventions can really make an impact. So by just growing this microbial consortium in a very large way and putting it in the fields, you're able to very quickly, within 30 days, restore the land and bring it back to the value. So that's where I believe that the science and technology has a real tremendous opportunity to make an impact for the future of the world, actually. The second aspect that also again touched by our Joint Secretary Chaitanya Murthy was citizen-centric science, actually. I think often scientists try to work in their silos, and they believe that what you do in your labs is the most exciting part of the journey of scientific thought process and ideas. And I think that is all very good when you are looking into the developing capacity or developing some kind of doing activities. But I think one has to start thinking of making contributions, and that's where each one of us should first take responsibility to make sure that something beyond the labs can be actually done in our nation's progress. And I think towards this, what we have done is actually through Biotechnology Research Innovation Council campuses, which are spread all across the country, we have decided to try and set up a program of what we call zero waste campuses. Now, very often zero waste campuses are thought to be that you don't really, the whole purpose of this is that let's not get anything, in no waste should in fact be generated, or if it is generated, it is reused in a way that it will actually make valuable addition to any benefit of the activities that are happening in an institution purposes. It's also a way to involve the community on the campus. I mean, as I said, it's not just about scientists, students, but faculties, all the other staffs and all the other people trying to believe in an institutionalized mechanisms to make things happen that are of incredible responsibility and accountability, actually. I think utilization of resources for future generations, obviously, it's very nicely said. One of the quote is that our responsibility is that we leave the planet in a better shape than what it is for today's environment, actually. And this Jonas Salk said this very beautifully once, very long periods of time before he got the Nobel Prize for it. I think our department also have a very specific focus on clean energy and climate change and advanced biofuel and sustainability directorate, who is doing a tremendous amount of role over the years now. And in fact, now it's becoming even more important for us to take up responsibility all these activities and encompass this from waste to value, biofuels, environment, and forest biotechnologies activities. Of course, what is happening now is that while Department of Biotechnology initiated many of these activities, I think several line ministries and other departments also have started to do R&D activities actually. So I think it's time to start collaborating with people and working together across ministries and departments to make scientific, uh, us taking science and developing science rather than doing it in silos and not really making or doing everything at the departmental level. Specifically, I would finally just talk about, department's major program for last 1 year that we are trying to envisage is what our country's future that we are talking about green tech technologies actually. And I think even yesterday's election, acceptance speech when Honorable Prime Minister spoke about green technologies that they're going to deploy in the country for the future generations to come. And what Department of Biotechnology is doing is fostering biomanufacturing and biotechnological interventions, which are likely to have circular economy based models that are likely to be far more better in terms of creating. Of course, these are not one or zero changes. I think it has a far more capacity to do regenerative resources and biological resources that can create a more sustainable climate and a zero climate change impactful activities. Several of these areas we have already identified, and many of you have participated. In fact, uh, Professor Pandit is chairs that meeting as well. He's a chair or co-chair. He's a co-chair of that committee, actually looking into this national co-chair of this committee, and therefore I'm really thankful for him for taking time and joining today. Actually, I think I'll finally end by saying, just become a responsible citizen is the first and the foremost task of human life right now. Actually, and I think it's even more so important for 1.4 billion people in this country to be able to be responsive and responsible to what we actually want to do and go ahead. I thank you all for joining, and we should not just have fruitful debates and discussions, but we should also have actionable items. As I said, it will be great if each one of us can take one decisive action today, even a very small one that can impact future of life in this country and for this world. Thank you all of you again for joining, and have a nice day.
For guiding us today. Definitely, directions given by you will boost the confidence of the scientific community in the field of environment and allied disciplines. And this will give more sense of responsibility and accountability to the pupils. We assure you that we will try to align the program to the activities you have mentioned, and we assure you to take action to put one thought or one program and tweets alongside. Thank you so much, sir. So, with your permission, sir, can we move to next session? Thank you so much. So, Chaudhary sir, good morning, and thank you to be ready to deliver the talk on very short notice.
Okay.
Can we? Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, perfectly, sir. So I will be sharing your presentation from here, and I request you to deliver your lecture within the
Okay,
time
please
of
do.
20 to 25 minutes, sir.
Please do.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
sir.
While you share the presentation, let me first thank um, the DPT for giving me this opportunity. And everyone, I think greetings of the World Environment Day. And I think, the theme is ecological restoration. And I have prepared a presentation trying to talk about ecological restoration, the national perspective in the context of coastal and marine environment. Okay. Uh, can we go to the first slide, please?
Just 1 minute, sir. We are going live on
Yeah.
YouTube, the screen also.
Okay. Okay.
Is it visible to you, sir?
Yeah, I can't see any presentation. It was there, but I don't see anything now.
It was visible earlier, but it is not now.
It started, but then it stopped. Something else is coming on the screen. Yeah, now the first slide is
Now it is okay.
Please,
okay. Just move
please
to the
start, sir.
second one. Yeah. Okay. Next one. Okay. I just thought that I would talk about ecosystem restoration, largely taking the ecosystem into its pristine state. And as we know, we are talking about degraded and destroyed ecosystems. The respectable Secretary Saab has actually briefed about the oil spill land restoration activity that the TERI and ONGC has taken up. And similarly, I think I am trying to talk about our coastal and marine environment and what kind of a restoration that is possible with technologies. That's as you talked, restoration could also remove a gigaton of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, and that's probably one of the reasons we are being here. Also, it supports livelihood, regulates disease and risk of natural disaster, and so on. And it also meets our sustainable development goal, which is one of the major reasons why we are here. Next. Okay. In the 2021 to 2030 is the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, and at least 70 countries are participating in this. India is also a major partner in this. We have ecosystem restoration in big way post tsunami, and in fact on the coastal and marine environment. That's one. Next one. Move. Yeah. The restoration, the basic principle of ecosystem restoration is it should contribute to the growth, promotes environmental inclusivity, requires diverse action, highest recovery possible, address where we are going wrong, takes all types of intelligence, and ecosystem restoration has a 10-year plan and must be monitored, and it's okay. So in our coastal and marine environment habitat, we have the seagrass beds, we have coral reefs, we have mangroves, we have sand dunes, we have salt marshes. 7,500 kilometers of our coastline has much diverse ecosystems and habitats, and many of them are in degraded condition, largely because much of our human population densities are along the coast. Much of our larger cities are along the coast. Townships are along the coast, and therefore one of the highest population densities dependent on these resources. That's one of the reasons these areas have become slightly degraded. Next one. Why there is so much of importance in the coastal and marine ecosystem? As I said, it is probably one of the largest population densities, and at least 90% of our marine biodiversity are dependent on this coastal area, and therefore, essentially, the health of our oceans and the environment. This is a social importance, and therefore, valuable ecosystem services we need to safeguard. The habitat restoration also will help people. The restoration will create jobs, and at least there are an average of 15 jobs per every 1 million that is invested on the coastal restoration. And that's also, we said, fishing, tourism. There's a lot of activities along the coast. 50% of the coast-based economy is generated out of livelihood options. And therefore, it is important for us to give our attention to coast and marine. What are the current and future threats? Largely, I think in our sometime our hurriedly developed plans, but one major problem on the coast is the oceans are getting warmer, and therefore there will be a 90 centimeter sea level rise, which means a lot of our coastal and marine environment will get quantitative loss. Next one. Next one. And we know that this quantity, in spite of the fact that the degree is just very small, 3.5 millimeter per year we're talking about, but even that is going to probably change our largest mangrove area, which is in area, world's largest mangrove going to be impacted, and this is one reason why our attention should be the coast. So the coastal and marine ecosystem requires our support, and these habitats are currently getting the conservation priority. Mangroves, seagrasses, coral reefs, these are the areas which are getting the priorities. Next one. However, sand dunes, coastal sand dunes, salt marshes, and the oyster beds, some of the specific habitats will not getting the attention. I'm talking about sand dunes practically because our dunes are getting flattened, and therefore these areas which needs our attention. Next one. Okay. When you look into our mangrove covers India, 2021 and 2019, when we look into this cover, we have added some mangrove areas. And this is interesting because post tsunami, next one, I think the map didn't come. Next one. Okay. Along the coast, the sea level rise is going to be the most detrimental to the mangrove habitat. And this is precisely the reason the MSSRF Foundation, they are the first one to take up mangrove restoration as one of their primary plans. Next one. Next slide, please. Yeah. In the 2004 tsunami, the two habitats of the coast, which got extremely impacted, are the coral reefs and the mangroves. And even after 20 years, we have not seen the natural restoration that should be taking place. And therefore, there are probably assisted restoration that is very, very necessary. And as we know, about a year ago, on the 5th June 2023, the Honorable Prime Minister has declared MISTI, Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitat and Tangible Income, MISTI. And today, after my presentation, there is at least one presentation which the DBT has supported. Dr. Krishnare is going to talk about the mangrove restoration effort which she is taking up. And I think MISTI targets at least 540 square kilometers of mangrove. Next one, continue this next slide. Okay. 540 kilometers square in 9 states and 3 union territories for a period of 5 years, supposed to be restored for the mangroves. But as we say, except, many of these mangroves are degraded, and fragmented mangroves are still not under reserve forest category, and therefore, except in Maharashtra where the mangrove plantation has been, and there are lands available with the maritime board, shipping and department, and other revenue department, and therefore we probably try to need not only dependent on the forest department, but also the other coast-based industries, other departments who own the land where the mangrove restoration can take place. For supplementation of the implementation of the MISTI, these lands are available. Next one. I'm trying to give 2 case studies. These 2 case studies where I'm involved. One is the coral reef restoration in Gujarat, and the second one is a small effort of the mangrove restoration in Kannur district in Kerala. Next one. Next, yeah. Restoring mangroves in Kerala. This is the first case study. As you know, from almost 900 kilometers square today, Kerala has about 20 odd kilometers square of mangroves. And in the Kannur district, which is the northern district of Kerala, there are only 9 square kilometers of mangroves left now. So 80% of the mangroves in Kerala under private ownership. The problems of the mangroves in Kerala are developmental projects, aquaculture, land reclamation, excessive salt, sand dredging, tourism, industries, and urban development. And therefore, we are trying to see if we can change the situation by taking degraded mangroves and restoration. Next one. Next slide. Next slide, please.
Is it visible to you, sir? We are changing the slides.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. And how are we achieving it? I think probably we missed out a few slides in between. Doesn't matter. Okay. What we are doing, mangrove restoration through community participation, because as the land belongs to the private sector, we have signed a MOU with the panchayats, who own the degraded mangrove land, and in those lands we are restoring the mangroves, and we have set up state mangrove nurseries. At least 15 species of mangrove species are being raised in these nurseries, and we are not following the traditional practice of the forest department, which are planting only single species. At least 15 species are being planted so that we replicate a natural mangrove system, which is often the case, which is not practiced. We are also resorting to awareness creation, integrated conservation hub for conservation outreach and research, mangrove interpretation center, library, open air laboratory, mangrove nursery. We have at least 100,000 school kids, college kids, children have visited this facility, and we are planning a scoping study in other parts of Kerala and India to take this model into other states. Next one. Okay, so communities and corporates for mangrove. This is interesting. The State Bank of India Foundation has supported this project, and we, as a Wildlife Trust of India, as a non-governmental NGO, and communities. So this is one of the PPP model, partnership model, public-private partnership model, in which this is taken up. And this kind of an opportunity probably will exist in many states, many coastal states, where the degraded mangrove actually belongs to the community. So it is extremely important to have the community involved. Okay, next one. The next case study. We move to the next case study. The second case study is restoring coral reefs, bringing back the corals in the Mithapur. It is one of the areas on the westernmost part of India in the state of Gujarat. Next slide, please. Okay, why Mithapur? It lies outside the Gulf of Kutch Marine National Park. Threats like reef destruction, fishing, reef fishing, there are no branching corals in that area. Next one. Next slide. This is the location. The area has only stony corals, and there is no branching corals in that area. And stony corals are an extremely slow growth. And since there are no branching corals, it was interesting to take up an area where we can possibly restore the stony corals. Okay, this is also a project funded by the corporate sector. The Tata Chemical supports this project. The Wildlife Trust of India is the technical agency working with the Forest Department. We started this program in 2008, where we had only 12% of life. And slowly we started restoration of the corals. And the methodology what you used was artificial reef creation, because this area has been extremely degraded because of mining, the coral stone mining and so on. So we had to create that surface again. Next one slide. Next slide, please. Okay, artificial reef creation. Go ahead, please. Next slide.
So it's artificial reef creation slide.
Yeah,
I think it
just
is.
move ahead. Yeah, artificial reef, these are because the stony corals, artificial reef, and then coral garden. Whatever we have rescued, we have created coral gardens. Exposed corals during the low tide is rescued and placed in subtidal area. In addition to this invasive one, there are also other techniques. Next slide. Rescue and rehabilitation with the corals. This is how it is done. Please move this slide. Next one. Okay, and we have also created no fishing zones, because the fishing practice is also one of the detriment to the coral reef flows, and people have voluntarily started no fishing in that area. And because we have created artificial reefs, the fish production has increased. The fish catch per artificial reef has also significantly increased, and that is now what we have now. at least 1 acre of artificial reef surface, 37 acre of no-take zone, and at least 350 families are dependent on this reef system. And we have increased the coral cover from 12% to 18%. And this is the increased reproduction abundance. Next one. Okay. What we have we are taking the new innovations, biorock and microfragmentation. As the Secretary Sir was talking about new technologies, these are the new technologies of reef restoration. Biorock is a slow stimulus given, electrical stimulus given on metal frames on which the corals start forming. And microfragmentation, we start growing micro fragments of corals in captivity and then take them back into the wild. So these are some of the newest state-of-the-art technology which we are trying to take. And along the west coast of India, this is the first of its kind. I'm just giving you an example of how a biorock is established. We have already established 5 biorock, and the government of Maharashtra is planning to have 500 biorocks off the Bombay shore. So I think it is interesting the technology, how it can be taken across in a large scale for replicating such activities. And these are research going from the lab to the land. Next one. From BioRock, we go to the next one. And communities and corporates, again, we are talking of a model where it is not only the government which is going to contribute. Here, corporates, non-governmental organizations, communities are joining their hands, and coral restoration is an example. So along the coast, I gave you 2 examples. And does restoration is the restoration only for the ecosystem? No. Apart from ecosystem restoration, there are also possibilities for faunal restoration, agroecological restoration. Agroecological restoration is something which is being practiced by the MSSRF in Tamil Nadu, where degraded areas where mangrove restoration is actually helping growing fish in captive fish in farms. So these are mangrove fish farming, crab fattening of crabs, and such other activities are actually bringing in income to the coastal communities. Biocultural restoration, cultural and natural sites and sacred groves. These are some of the things which can come where natural and cultural heritage sites can be restored by bringing in newer technologies. Next one, the possibility of faunal restoration. We know wild Bengal tiger restoration is possible in Sundarban. Fishing cat, another very, very rare species, restoration is possible. At least 3 species of otters, Batagood and Pillow-Calis turtles, river dolphin, Ganges and Irrawaddy dolphin. In fact, the Honorable Prime Minister has declared the dolphin project, which is already going on the rivers and shores, and mangrove grass. These are the possibilities for species restoration after you restore the habitat. Next one. Next slide, please. Lobster and prawns, several species of brackish water fish, pollinate both vertebrates and invertebrates, butterflies and birds, horseshoe crabs, saltwater crocodile is already being done. Why mangrove restoration is becoming globally important? We know Abu Dhabi is one of the pioneers in the field of mangrove restoration, with mangrove habitats in the Emirates having increased to 92% in the last 30 years. Dubai is launching a 72 kilometers, 100 million mangroves to be restored. And Sri Lanka, in 20 years ago, when the tsunami hit, and so far they have already restored 10,000 hectares of mangroves by 2030. In Kenya, at least 100,000 mangrove saplings will be restored in 100 hectares of forest. So I think the global examples are quite few. Next one. Okay. In the why mangrove restoration?
We cannot hear you, sir. So, नहीं वो पैसिव यूजर में आ गए थे, फिर से ज्वाइन किया. Sir, can you hear us? No. So there is some network issue in his phone. It is out of service. So, sir, can we start with another presentation right now? In the interest of time, I think we can start with the other presentation. हाँ, नहीं फोन भी नहीं लग रहा है, out of service phone. He's in Dehradun actually, in interior somewhere. So we make thank you for yes. Sir, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Yeah. So I think you were in this slide. Can you say yes?
Maybe there are just about 4 or 5 slides left, I guess, the last ones.
Yes.
Why mangroves are important, that was the last slide, I was in.
Was it visible to you?
No, it's not. The sharing the screen is still not there.
Now? Is it okay?
Yeah. Just go to the this particular, they are the largest carbon sequestrators. Go to the next slide. In fact, Indian mangroves will contribute to be the largest carbon sequestration anywhere in the world. Just go to the next slide. I think just make it full screen and go to the next slide.
It's in full screen. I think if it is visible.
No, it's not full screen. It is not seen one slide being shown. I think you first make it full screen and then share it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What is required to bring this paradigm shift? I think just go to the full screen and then shift. Okay, let me. Okay. Floral and habitat restoration paves the way for faunal restoration, eliminate the causative factors, make restoration science-based, and consider hydrological and geomorphological restoration before actual floral and faunal restoration, and sensitize local communities and sustainable use of the local ecological goods and services. That is extremely essential when you restore the landscape. Okay, next slide. Okay. What all can we do for restoration? Along with the government agency, which the Forest Department and the Mangrove Foundation in Maharashtra, we need to bring in the academia, which already the DBT is doing. We need to bring in the NGOs. I think Nature Conservation Foundation, Wildlife Trust of India, the Nature Conservation, WWF India, MSSR, Bombay Natural History Society. These are a few of the NGOs who are already involved. And private organization, Ecological Restoration Alliance. India has an Ecological Restoration Alliance, and they probably all will be participated. SDMRI, one institution in Tamil Nadu, is doing restoration. Reef Watch Coral Restoration in Andaman Nicobar Island, Coastal Impact in Goa, Omkar Foundation in Tamil Nadu, WTI we are doing in Gujarat and Kerala, NCF is doing in NCF. These are a few of the examples. I think it is important to bring in the NGOs into the fold. Next one. Okay. How will corporates benefit? The corporates are chipping in money. I think the carbon sequestration and carbon credit. That is how the corporates can benefit, and that is why one of the reasons I think slowly the corporates are coming into the fold. Next one. Okay, how biotechnology can assist ecosystem restoration? I think tissue culture is one of the classic examples. Microbe propagation in coral reef, and from lab-grown work to the laboratory, and these are opportunities that are available to take from lab to land. I think these are the opportunities we can look forward, and we are going to hear at least 5 examples of how lab to land exercise is going on, what the DBT is supporting in the lab, and that is going to go into the land. I think one of the best examples given by the secretary is the Terry and ONGC oil impacted land restoration. And the way forward is the urgent experimentation project, coastal marsh restoration, salt marsh restoration, and identifying CRZ 1 and 2, which the National Center of Sustainable Coastal Management has already made. I think if we are, these are opportunities for us, and these are the way forward. I think I will probably stop here. Thank you very much.
So thank you, sir. Is there any question for Dr. Chaudhary?
Yes, Dr. Chaudhary, say nice to hear that the coral reefs have been restored in 2 states of India, uh, and it was like
Yeah.
kind of a initiative which needs to be expanded more and more on the coastal belt of India. But my
Yeah.
only question is, since we are meeting on the environmental days, and I have seen few pictures of
Yeah.
which have shown for the coral replantation in your slides. Most of them, they are using plastic nets or plastic thread for tiding the coral to the bed. So why can't we use the
Yeah.
jute or some other biodegradable material for preparing the
Yeah.
nets?
What, yeah, one of the problems of the we actually in the first year we actually tried with cloth, and the longevity, because the corals are extremely slow growing, and the nets on which they are tied to, the nets become actually worn out even before the corals are established. This is one of the reasons so now these kind of plastics are being used. We have actually the very question we have asked our scientific technical advisors across the world, the Australian Institute of Marine Science and OEXM. They said we have also resorted to this question, and almost everywhere we do not have an alternative to the plastic. In any case, once they are established, the plastic is removed. They are not left in the sea. Plastic is a problem in the sea, and therefore we don't want to continue to use them. Once the corals start growing, then we remove them from the plastic net, and they are what we call a coral garden. We are artificial reef. What we put, we shift them into the artificial reefs. So they are not permanent. There is of course the plastic things are removed.
Okay, I think so. Thank you. I just have one quick, question. Uh, what you mentioned, these are like piecemeal ways of intervention in Kerala and some places. I wonder whether the Ministry of Environment,
Yeah.
Forest, or some other, agency, do we have a long-term document or a detailed plan for this restoration across the Indian, like coastal areas? Because you mentioned about the Australian coral
Yeah.
reefs. I'm aware that they do have a 5 or 10 year or
Yeah.
15 years of a long-term plan where the activities are planned, funding is there for a long term. So do we have a similar kind of, some kind of a, mission or plan?
Yeah. Um, in the Indian context, sir, I think our coral reef areas are some of our best coral reef areas in the Lakshadweep. In fact, Lakshadweep we don't really need any coral reef restoration. Only the areas which are coral reefs are present. If they can be taken care of and protected, brought under some kind of protected area network, they can take care of themselves. In Andaman Nicobar, again the same situation. I think there are not very many degraded corals. The only area where the degraded corals are there in the Gulf of Kutch Marine National Park and the Gulf of Mannar Marine National Park, and to some extent in Malvan Marine National Park. So in the 5 marine national park, we have already given a program, a component to the MOEF and Climate Change Ministry, to the Forest and Wildlife Division, what needs to be done in the 10 years. A plan has been given. Hopefully, they will bring it into a program.
Good. Yeah, great. Yeah, hopefully, I'm hopeful. Thank you.
Okay,
Any
sir.
other
Thank you.
question? Any question from online participants? So with this, I also have two questions, but we can share the thoughts in later. So the question in the ecosystems are the shared values for the different communities and not for the national communities, but for international communities when we talk about the marine and other resources. So how the I don't think there are inclusive funding opportunities from different countries while we talk about the protection or preservation of the ecosystems. Number two is the calculation of the actual actual contributions to the carbon sequestration. So the value there is
Okay.
a lot of different values are being provided by the different scientists. So that is still debatable. So we can have some indigenous methods or inclusive methods that can take up our kind of restoration programs in consideration. So with this,
Yeah,
I
I think
want to thank.
let me intervene a little bit. I think world's largest mangrove system is the Sundarban between Bangladesh and India, and I think what is the carbon sequestration value of the mangroves in the Sundarban has already been very well calculated. It has a long history. The first calculation which was done in Thailand to the present history of what would be the calculation for 1 acre of mangrove, what it contributes in terms of carbon sequestration and its value has already been calculated. But as far as other systems are concerned, for coral reefs and seagrass beds, there has no work has been initiated to calculate. So I think it will probably take some time, before we arrive to that situation. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. So, thank you so much, sir, for fantastic insights on restoring the marine aquatic ecosystem, coastal ecosystem. You have shared fantastic thoughts, and your experience has really will provide a path ahead to learn and design the programs in developing the a rationale to tackle the environmental issues. Thank you so much, sir. We will be in touch to the WTI and to connect with the different communities, scientific communities, and different stakeholders. We are those who are working on the ecosystem restoration programs by using the biotechnological approaches, and we will also request your help, we can say, in connecting the different stakeholders. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, with the permission of chair, we can go to the next program. So, next presentation is by Professor A.B. Pandit, Vice Chancellor, ICT Bombay. Uh, I'm so he do not needs any introduction, and a little bit Dr. Sandhya Sinoy has already mentioned. So we will go directly to the presentation. All the DBT communities know him very well. He is working on the energy bioscience, and he is the person who has contributed lot in landscaping the bioenergy in the entire country. So thank you so much, sir, for joining on very short notice. We will be sharing the presentation, and I request you to deliver your talk.
Thank you very much. You may start sharing the presentation. In the meantime, I think the focus area which has been chosen as our land, our future is indeed the most important among all the activities which are likely to be considered in the evaluation of sustainability index. You can remove that small window if you can, Valendra. Yeah, that's thank you very much. So I think the title was slightly different than the title which has been announced. The title which was given to me is wastewater management and its implication to protect the ecosystem. So that is what I'll be talking about. A couple of things. Being a chemical engineer, the first subject which we teach to our students is called as a material and energy balance. Now, material energy balance, Earth is a system which is isolated. The only input, the energy input which the Earth receives is through the solar radiations. There is no exchange of mass taking place with Earth and the environment and the space. The only input is in the form of energy. Now, this energy manifests itself in different forms, and currently we are focusing our attention on the system of water. So let us move to the next slide. Yeah, this is what the flow of the talk is going to be. What is ecosystem, ecological footprint, what is global and what can be an individual footprint, how one can estimate individual ecological footprint, what is the world's water scenario, what is the water demand versus population, how it is changing, how does one estimate the water footprint of an individual or an industry, what are the different approaches which one can take for wastewater management and use wastewater as a next source of water availability. How does one reduce the water consumption to reduce the water footprint, ways to treat wastewater, primary, secondary, tertiary, depending upon the quality of water which needs to be used for the purpose, for the application in mind. And then I will give some case studies giving you an indication how these learnings can be implemented. Next slide, please. So one should start with the definition of an ecosystem. You all know that ecosystem is a basic unit of environment, and it comprises of living and non-living things. And these are the interaction between these two is called as a system or an ecosystem, defined way back in 1935. So it consists of abiotic, which are essentially non-living physical chemical activities, and biotic systems, which are autotrophs, consumers, and decomposers. This is the kind of a thing which we teach to our undergraduate students, or to a certain extent even in our school. What we need to understand as engineers or as technologists is how these interactions essentially can be modulated, can be controlled to reduce the impact of anthropological activities on the environment or on the requirement of the water. On the right hand side, you see a small cartoon which essentially shows how the artificial and intervention, human intervention, can be implemented to essentially reduce the footprint and think in terms of sustainable usage of water as well as land. Next, please. So just to give you a broad example, the ecological footprint is essentially a metric of human need or a human demand on ecosystem, and more precisely on the planet's biocapacity, mainly because we have a fixed amount of land, we have a fixed amount of water, and there are various cycles through which these materials are recycled. So if you look at the left hand side, we have a global total land mass of approximately 20.8 billion hectares. We have a population of about 8.1 billion people. So essentially the available land per person is approximately 2.6 hectares per person. Now the global ecological footprint per person of 2023 is, this is what it is. But what is happening is the population is increasing, and as a result of which the demand on the land as well as the resources which are part of our ecological system, our ecosystem, are increasing significantly. The right hand shows typically is how many Chinas does it take to support one China. So what it indicates that the resources, ecological resources which are being used, and all these ecological resources are essentially generated by the solar incident energy over a period of years to millions of years, and we are using it at left, right, and center. So if you look at China, then China is using 3 times what it actually should be using. France 1.4 times, USA approximately 2 times, depending upon their land mass. India is still using about 2 times what it is. So ideally speaking, if you want to have a sustainable living, then the population of India should be half. And similarly, you can see all this. Land mass of Japan being very small and the society being extremely well developed, you can see the extent of land mass utilization and ecosystem exploitation which is occurring, as a result of which all these activities, in spite of the fact that Japanese people do live their life very, very systematically, very, very, let's say, in an environmental friendly manner. In spite of that, the resources which they are consuming, all the ecosystem resources, are approximately 5.5 times what they should be consuming. Next slide, please. So if I want to express the water as a resource, because it is getting recycled and it is expressed in the form of these small droplets compared to the total land mass availability, which is that of Earth. So water also exists in the form of water vapor, significant amount in the form of rivers, lakes, glaciers, aquifers. So if you see, the largest sphere is all water, the sphere, the droplet of water which you see. Sphere number 2, which is the fresh water available in the ground, lakes, swamps, rivers, so on and so forth. And the third sphere is the freshwater lakes in the rivers, the smallest sphere, which indicates the actual available water to us. Next slide, please. So this is what it is. If you see at the left hand side column, you have fresh water, 2.5% of the total water, other saline water 0.9%, and ocean 96.5%. Out of these 2.5%, surface water is 1.2, groundwater 30.1, and glaciers and 68.3. So if we keep on doing these calculations, the quantity of actual available water for us becomes less than 1%, approximately 0.2 to 0.3%. So it is necessary for us to find out alternative resources where the water has been already utilized and is being discarded. And that is what is also responsible for the ecosystem degradation, which Professor Chaudhary talked about in the first talk. Next, please. So if you look at the consumption, water demand versus population, population is increasing at a specific rate. So per capita availability of water is significantly reducing, and it's going to continue to reduce significantly. So between now and 2050, water demand are expected to increase 400% from manufacturing alone and by 130% from household. We've seen, and I think earlier mention was made earlier by the additional secretary, that the population increased 2 times, but the water consumption increased 6 times, which clearly indicated that the availability of water, which is actually a Jova's paradox, which is happening, the more activities which you make to make water available to the population, more wastage and usage of the water occurs. Next, please. So if you look at the nation's water footprint, depending upon whether it is United States, Russia, China, India, the 3 countries, which is China, India, and USA, are the top 3 countries in terms of having a significantly higher water footprint. Now, the right-hand side 2 figures essentially tell you that even though you may be using only 2 liters of water for drinking purposes, maybe 3 liters, maybe 20 liters of water for bathing purposes, and an occasional water which you use for maybe washing of your clothes or utensils, so on and so forth. Whenever you are eating something, whenever you are buying something, whenever you use water, actually, you are using water in all of these activities. What you eat is actually 3 times what you drink. What you buy is actually 2 times what you drink. So your total water footprint is significantly higher. I had given an example and I had given an exercise to my undergraduate students to find out what is the water footprint of Institute of Chemical Technology in terms of the water which we use in the laboratories, in the gardening, in the washing, in the effluent treatment, so on and so forth. And if you see how thirsty our food is, depending upon the quality of the food which you use, if you are going to use meat, then per kg of meat, we are actually using 15,000 liters of water, approximately 15 meters of meter cube of water. If you look at vegetables on the other side, it is 322 liters of water which is used. Imagine you eat 1 plate of chole bhature. 1 plate of chole bhature is equivalent to 560 liters of water. You take it from the growth of the chanas and then all the processing which is done. Now these techniques are available. In fact, if you search the net, you will find one of the students has developed an application which allows you to estimate your own ecological footprint, including water footprint. Next, please. Again, you will see here, where is the maximum water consumption which is occurring? If you see on the right hand side, the cartoon, 70% goes in agriculture, 20% goes in industry, and about 10% goes in personal consumption. So even if you reduce the water, which is essentially water which is used for your personal use, we are only addressing a 10% part of the overall pie. What we really need to do is we really need to address the issues where the water consumption is significantly higher. In case of industry, because of the economic factor, industry has already working on reducing the water consumption because it is ultimately affecting their bottom line. Unfortunately, in agricultural practices, we are not necessarily using water. Two of the crops which are most prevalent in India, which is the sugarcane and rice. Whenever you export 1 kg of rice or 1 kg of sugar, we are exporting approximately more than 2 meter cube of water. 2000 liters of water is being sent across along with that, because that is the water which is being used to grow these particular crops. So you can see from the food items and how the quantities which are going to change. So if you look at this and try to understand this particular cartoon, you can easily understand the statement which is made at the top, that in the 21st century, the wars are going to be fought not on oil but on water. So water is an effective oil of the 21st century. The impact of population growth and the food which is going to be required. So whenever we eat something, we tend to ignore that. We just tend to focus on our personal usage of water. But in all the activities, the water is an essential part which needs to be accounted for. Next, please. So if you want to estimate the total water, number of people, then the service water which is required, which I told you about, essentially for drinking, for washing, for bathing purposes, then what is the energy which you use and what is the water footprint of that energy? 1 kilowatt of energy which you use or which you generate, this 1 kilowatt of energy is associated with 6.8 liters of water. So you can imagine the more energy you use, actually you're using more of water. And what is the quantum of wastewater which also gets generated because of the industrial activity? And these industrial products which we are using, these industrial products are requiring certain quantity of water to manufacture, and that quantity of products which we buy, effectively again we are increasing our water footprint. Next, please. So we must look into reduce water consumption, then reuse the water wherever which is possible, and treat and recycle the water. The municipal corporation will take up water, whether it is restored rainwater as in the case of Mumbai, or the river water in the case of Delhi, where you get it from Yamuna. The water is treated to a particular standard and that water is supplied. Now, whether that water is used for flushing of the toilet or whether it is used for drinking purposes, there is no differentiation in terms of quality of water which you get after treatment. And this is essentially energy intensive, because more number of treatments which you give on water, the more quantity of water which is being utilized, because you're using water to generate energy as well. Next, please. So effective management of water which is going to be required. Now these are the simple examples. I'm sure people are aware of this. Just one, if you use a bucket for bathing purposes, then you'll be using about 20 liters of water. If you use a shower, then you will be using approximately 30 to 40 liters of water. There are different taps which are available. Now low water flushing toilets are available. You have basically a front loading washing machine and top loading washing machine. Though front loading washing machine is expensive, it saves nearly 60 to 70% of water. Then you have these waterless urinals which have been now installed in all of these particular airports or many of the public places. And you have a dishwasher which also saves. This is a proper study which has been created, because the people who tend to wash utensils, they keep the tap on, and all the activity of applying soap, washing the dish and keeping it, the tap is running continuously. Instead of that, if you use a water dishwasher will definitely save water, but dishwasher is going to utilize energy. Now that energy is also being using certain quantity of water. So every activity which you perform, that activity needs to be considered and looked from a life cycle analysis, and its actual water footprint can be estimated. Now apps are available, they are freely available. You can download those particular apps and find out how your lifestyle is actually establishing an environmental or water footprint. If everybody starts doing that, that is going to be the key factor which public awareness is required. Next, please. I'm going to consider 2 or 3 case studies here in the next 5-7 minutes, and then I'll stop. So effectively, you consider a textile industry. Why is textile industry? Because textile industry, I told you about the 2 crops which are water guzzlers, rice crop and sugarcane, because it requires a flooding based water system. That means the roots needs to be working in an anaerobic system, so they need to be flooded and continuously flooded with water. Similarly, an industry which uses extremely large quantity of water is an textile industry. As I told you about, if you are addressing your personal water consumption, then you are addressing only the 10% of the pie. If you are looking into industry, then you are addressing 20% of the pie. The largest pie, however, is agriculture. So drip agriculture, drip water agriculture, or agriculture based on conservation and redistribution of the water, linking it with the soil moisture content. All these techniques, if adopted, expensive to adopt, but if they are adopted, you can have a significant saving on water. So coming back to the textile industry, depending upon the type of textile which you are processing, whether it is wool, woven textile, knitted textiles, carpet, stock, yarn, non-woven textile, and felted textile, which is essentially pressed like a paper. So what is the quantity of water which is being utilized? What is the quantity water which is used in the medium and the maximum quantity? So you'll find that the cotton uses approximately 200 gallons of water per kg. 200 gallons of water per kg of cotton. That is the form of textile which you use, not just the cotton. It includes the cotton which is after it has grown. Forget the agricultural part. It is converting the raw cotton to a fabric, and the usage of the fabric by applying it a certain color, by applying it certain processings. So bleaching, dyeing, printing, boiler house, humidification. These are the typical textile processing operations which are carried out in any textile mill, and the consumption of water associated with it is been noted in terms of percentage of the total water which is used for textile processing. Now go next, please. Next. Thank you. So these are just some of the sites. They are actually simple, common sense, but they need to be made aware of. We need to think, and actually we tend to do many things without thinking, meaning we do it as a habit. Now, when you want to really address the issue of water footprint, it is necessary for us to actually look into the aspects which are available for easy to implement. So these are essentially low hanging fruits which we can implement, which will have a significant impact. So everybody tries to do that. I'm sure a significant conservation or reuse of water can be done. So good housekeeping, in terms of strict housekeeping, all these are fairly straightforward. Water reuse and matching of quality of water for the application in mind is extremely important. We did this particular exercise in our hostel. What we did was we installed all our washing machines for the purpose of the students on the top floor. Now, washing machines in the washing cycle generate a lot of detergent containing wastewater during the rinsing cycle. We installed small tanks on the floor just below that, and those tanks were essentially used for flushing of all the toilets from 6 floors onwards. Washing machine were installed on the 7th floor. So now we are using the toilet flushing water which contains the detergent. Now this detergent effectively cleans the toilet much more efficiently than water. So lower quantity of water requirement is there, as well as the water which we would have used otherwise for toilet flushing is being utilized, is being reused from the washing of the washing machines, wash water of the washing machines. Next, please. These are typical operations which are carried out, and I'm indicating those who are interested can use and study more, that every textile operation has an opportunity to save water and recycle water. So use a bioscouring method, single stage processing, raw material to recall ratio reduction, supercritical carbon dioxide dyeing purposes where water is not used at all, and CO2 can be completely recovered and recycled. Next, please. These are typical treatment strategies which are used. I am sure those who have studied simple water balances or water resource management would have done. These are primary, secondary, and tertiary. And every quality of water which you get after each of these stages of treatment has a useful purpose. Only thing is, after primary treatment, you can't drink it, can't use it for potable purposes. From secondary treatment, you can't use it for, let's say, industrial purposes. Primary treatment, definitely you can use it for gardening, no issues. From secondary, you can use it as a cooling tower makeup, no issues. From tertiary treatment, it is possible for you to get extra pure water which can be used for potable purposes. Next, please. These are some of the screens which are there, and these are some of the techniques which are available and practiced in terms of screening, sedimentation, equalization, chemical neutralization. These are the standard components of any treatment. Next, please. It's just the photographs, and alternative technologies are available essentially depending upon the capex and opex what you have. So there is a possibility for you to have water treatment at different levels of cost. You try to imitate nature, you have a biomimicry based water treatment available where the land requirement is large but your operating costs are practically zero. So we need to have a circularity approach in terms of water, and we need to mimic nature. Nature is one of the most resilient ecosystems which we have experienced ourselves, as a result of which it is necessary for us to keep on using and implementing what the nature does to increase our chances of sustainability. Next, please. Right, so these are tertiary treatments which are available. Next, please. Right, these are just giving you pros and cons of the various treatment schemes which are available. Those who are interested can study in detail later. There is nothing novel about this. These are all techniques which are standard techniques available and implemented throughout the country or throughout the world. Next, please. Same ultrafiltration, fed down reagents. As the technology has developed, you have more and more techniques available, but there are some techniques which cannot be considered if the pollutants which are present in there are biorefractory in nature. Nature does not have a capability of treating the biorefractory chemicals. In fact, the microbes will die. So what is done is essentially you pre-treat this and make the food available to the microbe which is in the digestible form. It's like we eating something, not what all we eat is likely to be digested. But if we cook something and eat, the digestibility index increases. So similarly, the BOD to COD ratio, which is also called as biological index or biotreatable index, that index needs to be increased. Next, please. This is again a flow of water and showing every opportunity where water conservation or recycle and reuse is possible. So the 200 gallons per kg of water which I told you about can be reduced to as low as 40 gallons. So almost 80% of water can be avoided, usage can be avoided or can be recycled, can be reused. Next, please. This is one of the techniques of advanced oxidation processes where the biorefractory chemicals can be treated. Now, this is too much of a, this is a technique which we have developed, and that's why I thought of mentioning it here. Next, please. This is just some examples of biorefractory pollutants. You treat it using advanced oxidation processes, and then you use the natural systems such as aerobic digester, anaerobic digester, or microbial fuel cells. Next, please. This is just the details available. So biodegradability index, BOD to COD ratio can be enhanced. As long as it goes beyond 0.35, the system or the water is treatable by biological means. Next, please. This is just results which are there. Don't worry about this. This is again an industrial system where a combination of advanced oxygen processes are being used. Next, please. This is one of the system where, just go back, please. Here it is zero discharge industry. Now industry wants to grow, but it cannot discharge water. So the only way it is possible is to retreat and reuse that particular water within the industry itself. And we were able to do it successfully. More expensive, yes, to reuse that water, but it is cheaper than paying fines or not allowing the industry to operate itself. Next, please. This is again details, forget it. Please go ahead. Please go ahead. This is one thing which I want to show, that here you treat the water and also generate energy. So this is a microbial fuel cell. So system uses microbes to treat and oxidize, and in the process generate electricity. Only in its preliminary conceptual state, but in principle proof of concept has already been established. So this is being explored at ICT in a bigger way at a scaled up version. Next, please. So the way forward is to look into a circular water economy. We need to have public awareness campaigns. Professor Chaudhary also mentioned the same thing. We need to improve infrastructure. We have to have a sustainable water management, public-private partnership, including NGOs. Again, the same thing was discussed and promoted by Professor Chaudhary. And we need to have technological solutions available. Thank you very much for your patient hearing, and I appreciate and wishing you a reduced environmental footprint in the next coming year, and we celebrate the next World Environment Day with the reduced environmental footprint. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful presentation. I just had a small question.
Sure.
Sam, Dr. Vashne Singh, Scientist D in the Department of Biotechnology.
Yeah.
So my question is, can a system of water credit similar to the carbon credit system be used as a measure to reduce water consumption and sustainable water use?
Actually, there are a couple of organizations which have already introduced this particular system. There is an organization which is called as Aquacraft. So you can go and have a look at their website, and they precisely do what you are talking about. Right? So they will take up your system, they will reduce the water footprint and give you water credit. And this water credit, you don't necessarily valorize it in terms of cash component, but it allows you to extract more groundwater from some other sources, because groundwater extraction is also controlled. So if you can take water credits at some location and then transfer that water credit to some other location where there is a water scarcity available. You can have a look website of Aquacraft to see how the water credits are being handled.
My name is Sanjay Mitra and I work in Department of Biotechnology. Dr. Saab, first of all, I was listening, your presentation was absolutely 101 classroom. I could understand every line. So that was commendable as a teacher. So that was the first part. The second part, I understand that you are from IICT engineering background. Myself is also engineering background. But I just wish to know your comment on something different, because what I believe is we always consider that water is a social good. So it's a free of cost available, you use it and don't use it. I mean, for example, when I put my car, I always concerned about petrol, because if I misuse it, I need to pay a lot money. But for water in general, because people are not concerned, because it's very cheaply available earlier also. And now when I look my water bill in Lucknow city, like in 1 year, I'm paying maybe 2,000 rupees. So again, don't you feel that apart from technology and the science and self, unless there is a policy change in terms of economics of water, so as a user, if I know that I need to pay, I mean, if I have to pay 20,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees with a meter like electricity, probably I'll be, or person will be much more concerned about its usage. So that is point number one. And number two is again the similar lines what you mentioned about the water scarcity, considering the climate change happening in next couple of years. Because even right now there is a water scarcity, but the climate change will further deteriorate and exacerbate the problems. So these two, just your comments on these two areas, if you have ever thought of. Last point, I was very happy. So third point, I was very happy to see, because as an engineer, I always thought that in my own house, I will always construct the two-step toilet. This was in my mind from last 15-20 years. I saw that the water, which even if your washroom, you are taking bath, that water should come at 3 or 5 feet below my toilet, and that should be used. Simple. So I was wondering the same technique could be standardized with the Architects Association of India, urban planners, so that becomes a standard kit, as much as possible, where even a bathroom, the moment you think of a toilet, the recycling water kit should come automatically. So that was third thing. Thank you.
Yeah, let me give you an answer to the first question. The the cost of the water is dependent on the ability and capability of an individual to pay water, right? So it is not same. You may, as an individual, may be paying, let's say 15 16 rupees per meter cube of water, that is for 1,000 liters, out of which one third of the water is water treatment. To what extent it is used doesn't matter, that is a different question which needs to be answered. But you go to a five-star restaurant hotel, of where you stay there, the same five-star hotel, the same quality of water is charged 150 to 200 liters of water. 200 rupees per meter cube per 1,000 liters. So it's almost an order of magnitude higher than that. But they are charging you so much, so it really doesn't matter. What matters is the availability of water. You imagine that one day water doesn't come to your premises or doesn't come in tap. So effectively, you learn to conserve. Cost, as long as affluence increases, the standard of living increases, we tend to become more wasteful. This is absolutely has been observed, and we need to educate our own people. We need to educate our own children related to that. Related to your second point, which you talked about, the toilet use or two-stage toilet, there are technologies available. In fact, the Indian Railways is working with a bio toilet where the entire quantity of water once spilled is being recycled. They don't tell you to use that particular water again. So enzymatic based treatments are available, and these can be fairly easily installed. And many of the societies now are coming up with these type of toilets where the toilet flushing water can be utilized. In fact, many of the houses have got installed an intermediate tank where the washing coming from washing machines is stored in that particular tank, and that is used for flushing of the toilets, giving you the same kind of a benefit which you mentioned. And the third thing, can you just remind me what was the third point? I can't hear you.
Okay. I think intermediate. You have commented on third and first. The second was the policy. Like we do technology, we do science part, but
Yeah.
unless any government, whether it is the government of India or anywhere in the world, this water usage policies. I mean, for example, when I was in Australia, my council has restriction that I cannot use a shower like number A3 to A5, with certain
Yeah, yeah,
force
yeah,
and
yeah,
hose. So
yeah.
whole council decides that in this area, no one is allowed to use beyond certain kind of shower and tap water. So I'm just trying that your comments on the regulatory part or the policy part on the water usage in India.
I think as far as the regulations which are there, regulations are plenty, and as far as India is concerned, the problem always has been the implementations of those regulations, right? Guidelines are available, but how many people follow those guidelines? How many people are aware of the importance of those guidelines? And that is why I think the public education is of most important to understand the importance of this. We are in a position in such a way, we are actually 49th day of a pond which is having one lotus which is growing twice its size every day. And tomorrow, the lotus is going to occupy the entire pond. But today, we are seeing only half the pond being occupied, and we don't realize the severity of that particular situation. The small last point which I would like to make is you cannot defeat the second law of thermodynamics. You are making products. You are making products, that means you are bringing disordered material into an ordered
This
material.
system.
If you are increasing the order in one thing, the disorder somewhere else has to increase. The
Correct.
climate change is a classic example of disorder manifesting itself in the form of environmental disasters.
Very nice. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I mean, second law of thermodynamics is still, you know, used to be the most difficult part, entropy and. But
Yes.
thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other question? Any question from online participants? So I think there is no more question. I have many questions, but
I can sit
so
and discuss with you independently anytime.
sure, sir. So thank you so much, sir, for connecting. Actually, this is difficult to summarize, but for connecting different paradigms of wastewater management and ecosystems and values associated with the ecosystem and ecological footprints, and it has added, multiple arms to our understanding to the water footprint that was really difficult to understand before your talk, and how self management or technical management and calculated awareness and contributions for developments of the wastewater management ecosystem. Actually, it was a holistic talk in addressing the wastewater management. So it is really helpful in adding arms to our understanding and helpful in aligning thoughts and ideas, not only for awareness purpose, but to design the new research and innovation programs to take forward the even DVT's initiatives. So thank you so much, sir. We will be connected with you for further developments in programs. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, sir. It was fantastic lecture actually. So can we move to next with your permission? So in next session, we will be listening to the DBT supported principal investigators, out of which four presentations will be the on the outcomes of the supported projects and two presentations. Investigators will be sharing their achievements through different projects, and all the presentations will be relevant to the restoration of ecosystems, but different kind of ecosystems from land to river to marine ecosystem. So thank you so much, sir. With this, I will request Dr. Krishna Ray to share his thoughts and ideas, and actually the work he has done, achievements he has made in respect of the Sundarban Biorestoration project. Dr. Ray, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Yes. So I will be sharing your slides, and I request you to finish your presentation in 5 to 7 minutes. Just
Yeah.
showcase the achievements you have made in respect of biorestoration project in Sundarbans, the DVT
Yeah.
supported projects.
Yes,
So
sir.
basically, these will be the outcomes of you know. Can you see the slides?
No, I cannot see anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it now. Can you remove my screen from here?
Is it visible?
Yeah, yeah. Should I start?
Yes.
Yeah. As you can see, the title is Biorestoration Demonstration in Degraded Mangroves. This is an inspiration work on behalf of DBT on successful restoration in Indian Sundarbans. Next slide. It's already, everybody is aware that this is the decade of ecosystem restoration, and conserving or restoring mangroves, it has become much more important in this decade because of the huge potential the mangrove ecosystem bears for its carbon sequestration. So for that reason, this mangrove ecosystem restoration has come in great limelight right now. But however, the problem is that over the world, the mangrove restoration paradigm, it's limited to only one or two species plantation in large scale, where the ecological restoration principles are rarely followed, which have been already told you by Professor B.C. Chaudhary. Under this backdrop, in 2014, DBT initiated this, and in 2020, DBT has launched this demonstration scale this biorestoration program. You can see it's across 65 hectares, but these 65 hectares are not located at a single stretch. These are different discrete sites, and out of that you can see the one site which is under restoration since 2014. It has now become like this in 2020, and we have been able to put it under this OACM India potential OACM site as provisionally it has been included. Next slide. So what we have actually developed? We have developed a comprehensive restoration framework, which is divided in three parts. The first part is the huge baseline data generation to identify the stressors associated with each of the sites. And as you know, this system is very much vulnerable and dynamic. So it's not a one-day job. It's had to be all this for the last 10 years we have been developing this data. And the second part is the application part, the technologies which we have, the technology components which we have developed to for this restoration. And the thing is, the last part is the evaluation. We have developed several indicators through which we are evaluating this ecosystem restoration. And you can see this is the Mahalanobis distance square method by which we have evaluated the restoration site which have been under restoration since 2014, and you can see how it is decreasing gradually over the years, and now at 2022 or 2024 it's almost equivalent to the pristine references. And the key components which we have been using, these are stabilization with grasses, this is local native grasses, and then facilitative approach of the conspecific and the interspecific facilitation by doing dense spacing plantations, and above all, this is the multi-species approach. Each of these sites are being developed as a potential OECM with 30 to 35 species of mangroves and mangrove associate species. Next slide. So we can see this is a ridgeline plot data which can show that how this Ramganga, this site which we have initiated restoration in 2014, it's gradually approaching our co-located pristine reference in several physical aspects of the soil. Second, next. And this is the drone image. You can see the site of Ramganga after 10 years of initiation of restoration. It's very unfortunate we don't have the drone image of this 2014. That time technology we didn't have at that available at that part of this Sundarbans. Next slide. And we know that this Remal cyclone, it's very recently it has struck Sundarbans, and the landfall was very close to our sites, but still this site it has been able to show resilience. Next one. And now I can show you some glimpses of the sites which are under this demonstration scale. This is the Durbachoti site, which is next to this Ramganga site. It's showing very much improvement over the last 3-4 years, and we expect that soon we will be considering it also for a potential OECM site. We will be applying for this site also. This also sustained the Remal surges. Next one. This is another site, Dakshin Narayanpur site, DBT project monitoring committee. They were very recently there, and this is it was clicked at that time. This slide also it's helped us to combat this recent cyclone. Next one. This is another site, Indro Narayanpur site. You can see the drone images. These are all drone images of the sites, and you can see these sites are being developed, which will resemble very closely the natural mangrove restoration. It's not like normal terrestrial afforestation sites, so it doesn't look like that. And we want these sites to be developed as a very biodiverse sites as well as self-sustainable in terms of in the longer future, so that the secondary succession is never hampered there. Next one.
So this is during the Ramal. During Ramal, you have shown these photographs during Ramal. How you taken these photographs?
The right-hand side photographs are during Ramal.
Okay. So, sir, this is the status of site. This site has actually withstood the many cyclones in West Bengal, and it has protected the coastline. So, because I seen it, so earlier there was the simple जो कच्चा वो होता है ना बांध टाइप का वो बना हुआ था, तो बार बार ये इट वाज डैमेज्ड. So after restoration of these sites, कुछ mangroves हो गए, तो जो waves हैं, it is not directly eroding the dam. So this is the value of this work. Thank you. So you can continue, please.
Next one. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is done already. This is another site. As I told you that we are applying our this restoration technology. All the sites are not responding equally. This is one of the sites, this Gangapur sites, and you can see that behind this site is a fisheries developed, and we assume that during the development of these fisheries, the in front mangroves were totally destroyed. So we are trying to reclaim that, and it was not a very easy affair. It was very challenging, and it's not showing at the beginning. It was not showing that much of improvement, but we had to do some hydrological improvement so that this site is also now. We expect it will also get improved over the years. And this is a glimpse of our open nurseries which we develop at each of these sites. And this is another site. You can see that thousands and thousands of saplings we are planting there. And not only that, we improve the sites in such a way so that natural regeneration is also it's encouraged. So we can get natural seedlings also coming up each season. And next objective is to find out what is the carbon getting sequestered by these sites, and the publication on over whatever I have said, these have been just accepted, and you can see all the technologies which we have applied here. It's described here in detail, and these are the main source of our work. This team from the field, they are the native communities of Sundarbans who are being supported by DBT. And all the students, and basically Chayan, whom we are greatly indebted, he belongs to the Ganga Sagar area, and he knows the ecosystem much better than any one of us. And my collaborators, Dr. Sandeep Kumar Basak, my husband also, and our institute and overall forest department.
Any question to Dr. Ray? So, sir, this is the project. Actually, we have submitted for as a flagship project recognition under the UN United Nations Environment Program call for recognizing the projects. So the value is this project has already attracted a lot of funds. Although we are not engaged, but it has attracted more than 5 crores from foreign companies. It has the value because in terms of carbon sequestration, the Sundarban degraded forest has value. So, lot of
funds should not be a problem, because even Ministry of Environment, they do have a program for this kind of a restoration of the wetlands, some kind of thing. I was member of that one of the committees, so I remember. So I believe we need more doers and action and researchers and these places funds. So I'm sure Madam must be aware of that. Madam, West Bengal government and the Ministry of Environment Forest, they do have a big program for these biospheres. So I'm sure you must be having contact with them also, because they do long-term sustainable. DBT money will finish in 3 year, 4 year, 5 year. No?
Yeah.
I want to respond. It is being implemented actually in the collaboration with the West Bengal Environment.
West Bengal, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
And the beauty of the project is this project we have developed our own biorestoration technology.
Very good.
That is supporting the multi-typic, multiple species are there. Whatever plantations being done by the forest department, they are monotypic.
Excellent.
So
I think
in terms of protecting the ecosystem services or overall ecosystem, this biodiversity viewpoint, it is important.
No, I'm glad that you're taking the multiple schemes of the government, of state government and central government, to really make action. That's always good. So very good.
Can be. So
can I ask a question here? Can I?
Please.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. I have been interacting with Dr. Krishna Ray quite a lot. But my only sincere request to DBT is to take these pilot programs of restoration, actual restoration, not plantation, to the agency they are responsible to empower the state government machinery, state government forest department. For example, collaboration with ICFRE, Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education, and collaboration with the research and development wings of the state forest departments, because they need to know this new technology of multiple species restoration, which is being practiced by support of the DBT, and only then it will take shape. Because currently the MISTI program, the Prime Minister's MISTI program, 540 square kilometer to be restored. It is actually planted, single species plantation, not restoration. So I think, while one program of the Honorable Prime Minister proposes to do something, the concerned department, MOEF and climate change, is probably not aware of the new technology or new state of art technology that is available. So I think, the kind of collaboration between the interministerial collaboration is essential, that I think, DBT probably need to take a step forward. Okay.
I think, sir, your point is very well taken, and already even we were talking the same issue, that because DBT is a project mode from time point to T1 to T2, and therefore it is important that the project should have an integration and seamlessly connected with the state government agencies and central government other interministries, where they can be sustainable, they can be adopted, and they can be scaled up. Okay, so I think that's very good advice. I am sure the program division, we will take care. Already we have these things in our mind, but now you have said, so we will take it, and we will do our own other connections as well. The other point is that, because sometimes the PIs who are sitting as a professor in institution, they are not that much empowered to talk and negotiate with the state government. So DBT officers is well placed. So your point is further utilized, that one of our officer will be in touch with the agencies in the West Bengal government and the concerned line ministries in the government of India. So we'll take care.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
In fact,
and I hope Madam Ray.
yeah.
Yes.
In fact, Dr. Ray, I think, see, the one small case study which I gave in my presentation, what we have actually done, in addition to Dr. Krishna Ray, anyone who is practicing a new technology, a new methodology, we have actually invited to be our scientific advisory council, so that, we know the state of art work that is going on, and therefore, it is important to do that kind of an integration, so that the other line department who are actually have the land, who also have the potential funding to take care of that. So I think the technology that is developed, to actually from lab to land transfer, this is essential for integration with other line departments.
Correct.
So,
I think, yeah, Dr. Ray can also be in touch with the DBT of program officer if she knows that you need to connect with certain agency in government level, or at the non-government level. The DBT officer will be more than happy to connect and talk to them for the taking the project at the further height. So we'll take care.
Yes, sir.
so thank you so much, sir. Those suggestions has been noted, and we will act on that. With this, I think we can make thank you to Dr. Ray. Dr. Ray, thank you for showcasing your achievements, and already you are aware that you have to collaborate with the other PIs also, because there is, this Sundarban, our project land, it's a kind of laboratory. Nobody is there to work and on with local communities. So it is providing resources to other researchers also. We are providing the manpower resources and many things to any of the agency. We are open to any of the agency who want to work. So we will act, sir. Thank you so much. So, sir, with your permission, next presentation is by Professor Piyush Pandey. Professor Piyush Pandey, we have supported one of the project on engineering bioremediation for oil contaminated soil ecosystem. This was a project implemented by the 9 institutions, including the leading institutes, the National Environmental Engineering Research Institute, Nagpur. Professor Pandey has demonstrated in Assam on ONGC sites by using the microbial consortia. They have remediated the ONGC's oil contaminated soil ecosystem. So he will be sharing his thoughts and the achievements he has made in respect of this restoring soil ecosystem. Dr. Pandey, can you hear us?
Yes, yes, very much. Thank you.
So I will be sharing the screen, and I request you to finish the presentation in 5 to 7 minutes. We are little
Okay.
lagging. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. I understand. I will try.
Just share your achievements.
So, Honorable Chairperson, officials from DBT, senior scientists, my fellow colleagues, this is Piyush, and today I'm sharing some of my research experiences. Microbial resources mediated soil ecosystem restoration. As already Dr. Balendra said, it will be focused on hydrocarbon contaminated soil eco restorations. On the on the first slide, previous slide, please. On the first slide itself, you might see the green fluorescent protein labeled bacterial cell colonizing around the root hairs, and some TEM pictures where you can see the uptake of hydrocarbons inside the plant. The upper panel is control and the lower panels are what happens to the plant tissues. So I will bring this up in the story further. Next slide, please. So this is the picture from one of our review article. This is the picture of hydrocarbon contamination worldwide, globally, so in different decades, and you can see it's a global problem. The hydrocarbon production the crude oil production is the primary source of our energy needs, but it also creates some issues, environmental issues like pollution of soil environments, and that makes soil unfit for agriculture and other purpose. Next slide. Uh, Next slide, please. Yeah. So this is the kind of problem we see in Assam. Assam is blessed with the natural resources like oil, and but such kind of contamination is very common here in the agricultural fields as well as in the ONGC sites where this drilling practices goes on. Next slide, please. So what we did, we went to such sites and collected samples, and we analyzed it, the amount of contamination, and also we did the microbiome studies, the complete microbial community profiling along with the functional genes. Next slide, please. And we were able to find that these contaminations varies in the community, varies place to place, site to site in Assam. And along with that, one interesting observation was that these sites were acting as an incubation site for the emergence of antibiotic resistance. This was we studied the antibiotic resistome. That is the microbiome that contains the antibiotic resistance genes, ARGs. Next slide, please. And we could correlate that these functions is because of the contaminations. So you can see the two panels here. Above is the control and below is the contamination side. Next slide, please. So out of these we were able to publish these two stories in two of the very good journals, where we have correlated the soil microbiome community with the contamination level, and we found that it is not correlated, in fact. And the second was about the petroleum hydrocarbons being the source of antibiotic resistomes. Next slide, please. Going forward, so this is the problem which we identify, and the solution which we present is through the use of plant microbe interaction, where the the bacteria which has the catabolic functions to degrade hydrocarbons, they are applied along with the suitable plant host, and the roots, they act as injection system. It goes inside the soil and it presents the bacteria into the soil, and that bacteria grows around the root surface and degrade the contaminant, the hydrocarbon contamination into the soil, and also faces the competition from the indigenous soil microbial population because of this rhizo-remediation. So we have used a number of plant microbe pair, as you can see here, and we screen the profiles for the degradation of hydrocarbons, including polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which are carcinogenic, and study the genomes of these organisms. We screen the plant growth promoting attributes of these organisms. So these organisms, they have multifaceted properties. They not only degrade hydrocarbons, they not only have this catechol 1, 2 and 2, 3 dioxygenases, they not only have PGPR attributes, but also. So next please. Next slide.
Those who are not speaking, kindly we mute it.
Next slide. So we also found one interesting phenomena in our experiments, that these bacteria, when applied along with the suitable plants, not only degraded, but also they were able to make the plants more suitable to grow in the environmental and in contaminated environment which has stress imposed by the contaminants like hydrocarbons. They are hydrophobic actually, and it's not a very conducive environment for the plant to grow. So these organisms were able to also provide support to the plant to grow in a stress environment. So this was published in Ecological Engineering. Through glutathione metabolism, we established that. Next. Then we did some transcriptome and proteome study and RT-PCR, where we see, because these contaminations are in heterogeneous environment, so there are other contaminants also and other carbon sources available. So we studied the presence of other carbon CCR pathways, basically carbon catabolite reparation pathways, whether the expression of catabolic genes will be there with along with the other carbon sources, and we found that it is okay. The other carbon sources doesn't affect the catabolism, that is the breakdown of hydrocarbons. And we also studied this transcriptome profile of the plants, where we can see that the plants were responding well when these bacteria was applied in the contaminated environment. Next slide, please. Then we propose one hypothesis that microbiome engineering is a concept which is coming up, where you can design your microbiome inside the soil or any other organisms for your desired benefit. So we have this hypothesis that bioremediation can be an instrument where you can modify the soil microbiome community total. This hypothesis was published in Journal of Environmental Management. And later on, we put up some experiments, couple of experiments. Next slide, please. And we could establish this hypothesis, and we found that the hypothesis which we gave is actually happening, where we put up some experiments and we correlated the relative abundances of the bacteria in the contaminated environment, and we could establish that when we put this plant microbe pair which are efficient for biodegradation of hydrocarbon, it promotes the growth of friendly or more or those bacterial community which have function that supports the growth of plant and also helps in degradation of hydrocarbons. So this is what it looks like. Next slide, please. Correlation between these are the two papers. One was in chemosphere, other was in applied soil ecology, and where we could establish our hypothesis. Yeah, next slide. So then we also have put our trials in some rural areas in the contaminated farm fields. This was a different DBT projects, and also with the ONGC in Lakwa site with our plant microbe pair. Next slide. So we have prepared the fields and we have put up the trials, like this is with as a director indica, that is neem plant, along with our, and we were able to degrade more than 70% of this crude oil hydrocarbon. Next slide. Next slide, please. These are the microbiome. Then there is we recently came up with a paper in bioresource technology where we have reported the asphaltene degradation. Asphaltene is the most toughest and difficult part of crude oil, which is very difficult to degrade, in fact. And we were able to, and this is the first report where a rhizobacteria was degrading asphaltene along with the plant, suitable plant. So we were able to publish, and you can see the panels. So these are the contaminated sites from the ONGC sites where they have collected this sludge. So they collect the sludge, they take it from the contamination and collect it into pits. So we take this sludge, these are hydrocarbon sludge, and next slide, please. And we put it up the trials with the crotalaria plants. So we did first in situ applications at pilot scale, in situ experiment at pilot scale, and we were able to, with crotalaria, and here we were able to degrade 100% of crude oil and TPH, crotalaria, and along with our bacterial consortium. And this was a small setup. This was a small setup at ONGC site in Lakwa, and where we have put up our trial. Within the ONGC ONGC property. Next slide. And so previous slide, please. Previous. One slide is missing. Okay. So I think this is coming blank. Okay, so we were successful in completely remediating the hydrocarbon and the crude oil in the ONGC site by using our plant microbe pair. And very recently, yesterday itself, it came online. We published a paper in Progress in Energy and Combustion Science. It's a very high impact factor journal. And here,
Kindly share this paper, detailed paper to us.
yeah, sure. I will. Just yesterday, it became online, and here we have proposed that we had been using our plants, and here we propose that if the plants which are used in the rhizo-remediation are high energy crops, then this can be a very good solution in a circular economic principle, and where these plants can itself be used for the biofuel purpose. So these are some of the because we had been working with such kind of plants, like we have worked with the scrotolaria and also Jatropha. So these are some take-home messages that the rhizo-remediation approaches. It may be a wonderful technology if we work on in the principle of plant microbe interactions to remediate soil ecosystem, and we can also use it for other diverse application like for biofuel generation, and also for in fact we are experimenting with this MFC also along with it, but probably that data I will present in some other presentation. Next slide, please. So this is the other publication from this work, and in fact there are 3 DBT projects which I had been working, and today I have with this problem, and today I have presented mostly for the project which Dr. Balendra has mentioned. This is my team, in fact, my scholars. All credit to him, to them, because of their data only we were able to generate some successful stories. So thank you for patient listening, and if there's any question, I will be happy to answer. Thank you.
So, any question for Dr. Pandey? Yes.
Dr. Pandey, I think Piyush, fantastic presentation. It's not a question, it's just a curiosity that whether your technique will be useful for oil spillage, which happens in the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean very often. As you are aware that the oil tankers, they go in the sea, and because of a number of reasons, there is a oil spillage. And then the problem comes to the, and very often it is called no man's land. Like once in DST, there was a complaint because of the climate change that, the oil spillage which happens to the some few hundred of meters. So have you any plan whether this tool can be useful for solving some of the challenges there also? So your comments, please.
Yeah, excellent question. Actually, this is the strategy which we designed should be the problem specific and problem oriented. That's why even the rhizo-remediation was, when we designed this was site specific, where we selected the plants and bacteria from which could grow in that particular region. Now, when we are looking at the problem site as a marine environment which has to be addressed, then accordingly the solution will be different. But in the same line, actually, we had also a discussion with the biodiversity board when I was visiting recently, Goa Biodiversity Board. They presented the similar kind of problem, and they're facing this tar ball problems, as you have mentioned. So there, of course, this strategy can come in 2 ways. Either we can have a carrier material where these organisms are put and into the because the oil is present on the surface. If we have there are some moving bed reactors where the bacterial systems are trapped inside small balls which floats on the surface, and they degrade and make a ecosystem of biodegradation there. So one strategy is this, and for the coastal regions, mangroves can be taken into account for the rhizo-remediation purpose, where we can apply these bacteria on the surface of on the tissue surface of these mangroves, and in the coastal area that strategy can be tried actually, and it can be implemented.
So that's great. Thank you. So please look in that direction also, so that technology can be used to solve that problem also. Great. Okay.
Can I ask a question, please? Okay. Can I ask a question?
Yes, please, sir. Please.
Okay. This is not a question, Dr. Pandey. Wonderful presentation. Rhizo-remediation as a possible solution for hydrocarbon impacted land. I was just asking, since you are from Assam, the Oil India Baghjani oil well explosion and its impact in Dibru-Saikhowa Wildlife Sanctuary and wetland area. Now, the National Green Tribunal has actually asked Oil India to entirely support the restoration of land and water in this impacted area. So if since your program is a successful model, can you probably take this into the field with the Oil India, with a dialogue with the Oil India? And it's also going to help one of the biggest protected area in Assam, Dibru-Saikhowa Wildlife Sanctuary, and one of the largest wetland. There is a significant land area which has got impacted because of this oil well explosion of Oil India. And since your work is in Assam, it would be useful to get in touch with Oil India, and also the National Green Tribunal has asked them to provide the entire fund required for restoration of the land and water body that is impacted.
Sir, I would love to. In fact, I want this rhizome remediation to go places, and because not only because it is less labor conducive, because you don't need tilling and all, which you use with normal bioaugmentation process. Because the plant roots, they themselves, they goes into deeper region of the soil, and the other benefit is that because of the presence of plants in this rhizome remediation process, this is much greener and environment friendly approach. And also I'm delighted to share that the crotalaria system which we implemented, crotalaria and microbial consortium system which we implemented in the ONGC, this was a self-sustainable system. We never had to, we just had to give a minimal care like we do to our garden plants, and later on these plants, when the soil was remediated, the ONGC have to take off the plants by their own, and they use it for the other purpose. But that ecosystem was completely restored. It was totally green, and the plants were flourishing, and the other plants also flora and fauna developed in the contaminated soil. So if restoration is the issue, and if it is the hydrocarbon and crude oil contaminated soil, I think rhizome remediation is the best thing which we can offer. So if I get the opportunity, you please show me the way, whom to contact and how to proceed. I would love to be there.
Yeah. The other question I thought, when you bring in the rhizoremedial a particular plant species, several plant species, one of the problems of bringing new plant species into a protected area is these species might actually become invasive later, alien and invasive, which is actually not something required. So I think these plants which you are concerned, whether these species are naturally occurring in that area, or these species are completely alien and invasive or exotic to that area. That's also another question you need to think of.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and I really appreciate this, because it's what you have said has value to it, because these invasive species are naturally little more resistant, and they are less vulnerable to such environments. So usually they work well in the contaminated environments like crotalaria we use. But we use these plants because they have already invaded, and they are already growing in that region. So later on, these plants can be taken off from those sites and used for other purpose, like for biofuel generation or for other energy purpose. This is one aspect. Otherwise, if the land is such the way that it is once protected and should not be used, in that case, we screen out the vulnerability of the plant for the rhizome remediation first, and then we take it to the site. So if this is the case, then we will have to start from the screening process. But of course, if you will not get affected with that.
If you know the species of the plants which you are using, I think there are synonyms in the same species of the similar species in other areas. You might actually find that particular species in Western India or Eastern India, but the same species synonyms will be there in Western India and other parts of the area. So I think it would be interesting to also discuss with plant taxonomists who can actually tell you what kind of other species can possibly respond in the bioremedial technique what you are talking about.
Yeah,
so I think
actually,
I will.
Yeah, it's a good point, sir. Actually, what we do, because we need the plants to survive in the hydrocarbon environment. So first we screen which plants are surviving. Then we go to taxonomists to identify that plant.
Yeah, it would be also interesting in an impacted area. Already there are some species which are surviving. If you can make a profile of those species and try with them, they probably better way to answering. But I will take your contact, and I will probably get you in touch with a couple of individuals and organizations who can probably give you some area in this impacted site, so that you can try your experiment there.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I think, is there any other question? If not, we can make thank you to Dr. Piyush Pandey, who has made fantastic presentation. And yes, our DBT is looking towards generating the designer, syncoms, we can say synthetic consortia or different ecological or other issues. So we can have further discussion in this regard. Yeah. So thank you so much, Dr. Pandey, for giving
Thank you
the
so much.
insights on this
Yeah.
important work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So
Thank you.
next
Namaskar.
presenter is Professor Puneslo K. Bahadri from Indian Institute of Science Education and Research, Kolkata. Actually, we have supported one project to Professor Bahadri, but the presentation here we will be listening his own achievements in other projects. He's actually doing fantastic work. One work is on microbial through competitive exclusion of the substrate. He's working on the NGT project in Damdam Municipal Corporation to outcompete the methanogens or to avoid the methane emissions from the dumping ground. So that is very interesting work. Then he has designed one device to remove the E. coli from the water. Last year Environment Day he has presented, but today he will be presenting on separate topic. This is ecological restoration of a river, a case study from Assam, which also a stretch of the river Professor Bahadri has successfully restored in terms of. So he will be sharing insights on that. So Dr. Bahadri, I will be sharing the slides, and I will request you to finish in 5 to 7 minutes. Just present your achievements only.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, and thank you all very much. If you can share the slide.
Can you see this?
Yes, I can see it.
Start.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll limit myself to 5 minutes. So I'm going to talk about our ongoing work on bioremediation of Pamohi River. It's an urban river passing through Guwahati, but has got implications for the Dipor Bill, one of the largest freshwater wetlands of the east of India and the only Ramsar wetland of Assam. Next slide, please. You can scroll down. Globally, freshwater ecosystems are threatened. In the last 10 years, more than 30% freshwater ecosystems have been lost, and 1 in every 3 species that is becoming extinct are from the freshwater ecosystems. So the problem are really well known to us. Next slide, please. We have been working in the Dipor Bill, this wetland in Assam for more than 5 years now. We have been running a program trying to understand the state of biodiversity of Dipor Bill using rapid biodiversity assessment tool, mostly based on environmental DNA or eDNA. And over the years, we have found out that parts of the wetlands are showing signs of stressors, particularly signals of human origin. For example, fecal coliform load has gone up, nitrogen in certain parts of the Dipor Bill has gone up. This has got consequences for Dipor Bill because it houses many indigenous biodiversity, particularly indigenous fish species that sustains the livelihood of more than 170 fisher folk communities in the region who are indigenous also. Next slide, please. The reason for why Dipor Bill is showing high nitrogen content and increasing human stressors is because several rivers directly dump the urban untreated sewage of the Guwahati city into the Dipor Bill, hoping that the Dipor Bill would act as a natural filtration system. But again, the flow of the sewage has gone up over the years due to the expansion of the city of Guwahati. One of such rivers is the Pamohi River, which drains maximum volume of untreated sewage, both domestic sewage and to a certain extent into industrial sewage on a daily basis. This is how it looks like. Next slide, please. So what we have done is to develop the bioremediation strategy, we first did an intensive baseline information generation, trying to understand what are the what is the ecological state of the Pamohi River, what kind of pollutants are there, so that we can develop our technology. So we did a lot of work, and we found, for example, dissolved oxygen concentration is very low. TDS is extremely high, way above the NJT limit or the CPCP norms. Fecal coliform, of course, is not unexpected, is very high. So these information helped us to design our strategies. Next slide, please. What we have done is an approach called a microbiome-based bioremediation. Dr. Piyush was talking about microbiome engineering. This is also a microbiome engineering approach, but here we are engineering the consortia, not engineering the bacterial cells. So what we do is a very straightforward technique. We have a patented technology called these porous hydrogels, which you're seeing bottom below, where we can increase or decrease the size of the pore size. So it's like a Russian roulette, if you can think it, or Russian doll, where bigger pore, then medium pore, then smaller pore, or smaller, medium, bigger. That's how the arrangement is. And in each of these pores, we put certain groups of bacteria that would be able to degrade different type of pollutants, whether domestic sewage or industrial ones. But these bacteria are indigenous to the Assam. We are not importing bacteria from other parts of the country, neither we are importing bacteria which are not indigenous to India. So we do that. Then what we do is these hydrogels, we stack it up in floater devices. So essentially these devices remain floating in the water, and when the water is passing through, there are biochemical reactions, as a result of which the pollutants get removed. This floater device have a withstand rate of flow rate of 3 meter per second. So even in very high rainy condition, flooding condition, also this system is going to work. Extreme right hand side bottom one image, you see where we have also put vertical column where we have done injection of this microbiome. So two of the approaches that we have taken. Next slide, please. So we have done this over like 1 kilometer stretch of the river. This is how you see the river has transition over the time. Of course, the top one is the July 2023, when lot of rain was there, monsoon was there, flooding, and of course the sewage flow. But as the monsoon receded, the sewage flow became intense. The smell was very intense. After we put the microbiome engineering into place, the smell went away, and in April 2024, the system started to show signs of ecological recovery. Next slide, please. What you see very clearly is that once we have put these engineering approaches in place, the hydrogel with the microbiome, selective microbiome, we see that the dissolved oxygen concentration in the system started to improve. The pH became very stable, adhering to the CPCB and NJT norms. Not only that, the total dissolved solid also started to show signs of improvement. Nitrate in the water started to go down. The nitrate that was embedded in the sediment or in the river bed, that started to decrease. Next slide, please. This is one example where the dissolved nitrogen pool, inorganic nitrogen pool, we are able to bring it down gradually in course of time, bringing in a situation where the indigenous microbes which are as part of the hydrogel and the microbes that are there in the Pamohi river, even if it is polluted, they are able to use it, because now it's not an inhibitory concentration. So we started to see that the nitrogen concentration started to decrease. Next slide, please. What was very interesting is our technology, as Dr. Singh was pointing out, we were able to remove fecal coliform. So this was what the fecal coliform number was in the beginning, July 2023. But with the intervention of our technology, the fecal coliform number was brought down to about 10 to the power 2 per ml. At present, the fecal coliform is insignificant. We don't see much fecal coliform in the system. Once in a while episodic inputs. We are working on the phase 2 implementation of the project, and we are hoping to bring this fecal coliform to zero by microbial competitive inhibition process. Next slide, please. The approach has been working, because now we are seeing in the Pamohi River that stretch of 1 kilometer where we have put this engineering approach. We see that the biological components which represents the ecological restoration signals, for example, the indigenous fish populations are starting to come back, the aquatic flora, the plants are starting to come back, particularly the submerged vegetation, and we are hoping a scenario where the system will be cleaned even if the flow of the sewage is there, the system, the technology will hold it, and we'll have a situation where the indigenous flora fauna, which used to be there in the Pamoy River, is going to sustain. But for the long term solution, this is not a solution. This is a stopgap rescue method. The city of Guwahati is coming up with their with a big 30 MLD sewage treatment plant. So that is hopefully going to put the pressure down on the Pamoy River through and decrease the release of the sewage. So we are hoping that in the phase 2, our technology is going to keep on performing the way it has been over the phase 1. Next slide, please. Of course, this is our contribution to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We have been talking about it. And most importantly, we have been saying about blue carbon, but freshwater ecosystems can be a repertoire of blue carbon. So essentially, when we restore this kind of ecosystem, they will be able to hold lot more blue carbon and also offer ecosystem services in terms of freshwater blue economy. So the potential is huge. Next slide, please. Again, the work that I have presented is a teamwork. These are the fantastic young team members who have worked tirelessly. We were supported by the federal government of Germany for this restoration initiative. MOEFCC, UNDP have been involved in this project. Government of Assam has been involved in this project, and Nature, Environment and Wildlife Society, a prominent NGO, has been also very actively involved in this project. The phase 2 work has just commenced, so we are hoping in the next 1 year the scenario is going to completely change, and we'll have a completely restored river stretch in this place that would ultimately aid in the overall ecological health improvement of the Dipor Bill wetland. Thank you so much for your time.
Any question for Dr. Bahaduri? Any question from online participants? So I have a quick question, Dr. Bahaduri. Is your this technology is I mean possibly implementable to the cleaning of Yamuna River, or some kind of treatment we can give in New Delhi?
Yes, sir. It's absolutely possible, and we have a DST NWA project in the Hindon River, where we are also going to implement this technology with our partners of Indian Institute of Farming Systems, which is an ICAR institution, to improve the agri-water practices and also restore part of the Hindon River. So yes, sir, any opportunity that comes down, we will be very happy to take this technology and put it in Yamuna River or any of the tributaries that we deem suitable.
So have you approached or communicated this achievement to the Delhi Jal Board or somewhere?
No, sir, not yet, sir.
So yes, so we have Dr. Sanjay Misra, scientist H in DVT, on board. He had suggested me to connect with someone. So I will assure, sir. I will try to connect.
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to ask.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to ask Dr. Bhaduri, has there been some actual cost of, about a kilometer of river or about a stretch of 100 meters of river, the micro bioremedial technology that is being practiced? What would be the cost factor? I think, one is the methodology, and also taking that from the lab to the land, from the lab to actually the field. If a cost factor can be worked out in addition to methodology, maybe it would be useful for other organizations, other fund-giving organizations to actually chip in and take up, stretches, larger stretches, as you said, experimentation from Assam to bring it to Yamuna. So I think, one of the major factors is, what it would be costing and the time frame. So I would ask Punyaslok to answer if he has done some costing analysis.
Thank you, sir, for a very pertinent question. Sir, the entire implementation has been happening in the field. So we have directly done all the trials in the field. The cost is probably, if I'm not wrong, the cheapest. 1 kilometer stretch cost around 4 lakhs only. And I know there are technologies which is costing about 1 crore per kilometer. So this is lowest, 4 lakh Indian rupees per kilometer.
Yeah, I think, that's a takeaway message. If you can say with just about 4 lakh rupees, you can actually about a kilometer of river can be taken care of, depending on the width of the river. This will have many potential user of the technology that will develop. Please,
Yeah.
publish this, on the cost factor.
Yes, sir.
So,
I will.
yes. So, thank you, Dr. Bahadri. I will also request you to connect with Dr. Avinash Sharma from NCCS Pune, where we
Yes,
have
sir.
supported one project on microbial dynamics in Ganga River during the, mass bath events. This is
Yes, sir.
happening in the entire world. So, there is significant change in dynamics that also, I don't know, lead to benefits or lead to harmful effects. But he has conducted a good study and he has published a paper in PLOS One also. I think
Definitely,
somebody
sir.
is there in online. Director, I think Director NCCS is online. If they can comment on this, Dr. Sarmila Bapat, ma'am, can I request you? Is it possible to you comment? I think he's joined passively. So I
Yes.
request you to connect with. Yeah, please.
Yes,
Yes.
so I've been hearing this right from the morning, and I must congratulate all the speakers as well as the coordinators of this meeting. It's been wonderful to hear of this initiative, and climate change is indeed something that we really need to pay. It's becoming very important actually for us to move from this point onwards. I especially liked some of the bioremediation approaches that have been discussed at length today. And I must congratulate those teams for taking this ahead. And I believe that some of these approaches actually can be profitable also in the future, which will make it a highly sustainable one. So, congratulations to the entire team for putting this through, and thank you for involving all of us in the same.
So,
Thank
ma'am,
you.
we as part of the DBT, I think for microbial or microbial consortia based remediation technology, I think NCCS can lead and we can approach for collaboration of these kind of researchers working in silos. If DBT can
Yes.
involve them to come out with a. So, I request Dr. Sanjay Misra, scientist at to comment on this.
I think, madam, what my colleague Barendu was talking that because of the NCCS Pune has already some lead. There has been researcher who have done similar studies in the river Ganga on the bathing one. So what the DBT wishes that whether your institution can we can connect these several projects and you can come up with kind of a plan where DBT can take it forward to the line ministries, let's say Delhi Jal Board or maybe in Uttarakhand and in Uttar Pradesh, where we can showcase that as a department with help of all our PIs who have track record and as an institution from NCCS Pune, we can give them the technology solution. This is what the DBT is looking for.
Yes, sir. So I think it is well framed, and I request Dr. Bahaduri will connect with Dr. Avinash Sharma from NCCS, and Director ma'am has already confirmed it, and we will be happy to collaborate on these issues. So I can make, I think, with your permission. So thank you so much, Dr. Bahaduri, for presenting the fantastic insights on ecological restoration of river and case study and technology you have delivered in these lines. Thank you so much. So now I will request to Dr. Mausumi Ganguly from Cotton University, Guwahati, to make her presentation on conserving elephant corridor for generating alternative livelihood, a case study. So it's not a technical presentation, because basically it's a societal kind of study. So
Right.
we will
Yes,
see
sir.
this now. Yeah. So thank you. I will be sharing your slides. I request you to finish in 5 minutes or 7 minutes max.
Okay, I'll
Five
try,
minutes, please.
definitely.
Okay.
Okay. So, can we have the slides, please?
Just. I'm
Yeah.
sharing. I'm sharing.
Okay, before my slides are placed, let me take the opportunity to thank DBT for giving me this opportunity to share my story, our little effort to protect one small but vital portion of an elephant corridor by generating alternative livelihood to the encroachers. In this project, my co-PI is a retired, experienced teacher from the Department of Zoology of Cotton University. So let us go to the next slide. So this is our study area. We have focused on a small part of a forest. This forest is called Dihira. It is located in the Baksa district of Assam and it is near the Bhutan border. And it spans an area of about 6.7 square kilometer. And Dihira is a part of eastern buffer zone of Manas Tiger Reserve, and it also connects with the Ripu Chirang Elephant Reserve. Some of the important forest areas that are near this forest, Dihira, these are called Deodhara, Pukanjuli, Subankhata, these are the nearing forest areas. But these forests form the corridor of big mammals connecting the two core areas of Manas Tiger Reserve and Bornodi Wildlife Sanctuary. So this is a crucial forest because it is a part of elephant corridor, but it is always neglected. This has always failed to attract the conservationists rather. So let me tell you about the importance, the challenges the forest is facing and our efforts to preserve the forest. So I'll tell you about this. Now, as I have said that this is facing some challenges. This forest has some 10 fringe villages across its southern border. Now, the economy of this region got crippled during the social and political unrest. The region that it is under BTAD, Bodoland Territorial Districts. So this region was under social and political unrest. There were many problems. So as a result of this, there was no development. So actually this forest is not degraded by the development works. It is actually the economy of this region has become so crippled that the residents of these villages, they are forced to encroach the forest because the soil fertility has also gone down. So they have encroached the forest and they have expanded their agriculture. And that has led to diminishing wildlife habitats and has also disrupted the elephant corridors. And as a result of this, there have been a number of cases of human-elephant conflict, and this conflict is quite significant. It has resulted in human fatalities also. The elephants also frequently they raid crops because people have cleared the forest cover to for agriculture. So these has led to clashes, human-elephant conflict. Then raiding of crops is also a commonplace, leading to economic losses of the local farmers. In addition to this, can I stay for some more time in the previous slide? So as a result of this, there were logging activities. So these are the challenges this is facing. So what is our project goal? Our project goal, so we wanted to address this issue. We know that the conservation is necessary, but we took a multifaceted strategy to address the environmental issue as well as the socio-economic issue and the conservation challenges. So let me tell you what are the interventions we have taken. First, we have had a number, we conduct regularly some awareness programs. We have tried to make the local people aware of the menace of this deforestation, because that we consider to be very important. So they now know the importance of elephant corridors and the need to conserve them, because it is they are destroying the biodiversity, the soil fertility is going down. So what we have told them, we have provided them with some alternate livelihood options, because they solely dependent on agriculture. So we provided them with some other options, for example, piggery, dairy options, and the poultry farming options we presented to them. Now, I would also like to tell you that this has a mixed population. Though majority are Bodos, there are some Nepali people, Gorkha people I should say, and some Adivasis are there. So a common livelihood option is not acceptable, because the Bodo people, they are interested in piggery farming, while the Gorkha people, they are interested in dairy farming. So we have persuaded them to come back to their original place, that is their villages, and they should do some activities, other livelihood options. And we are also working to restore the habitat by planting elephant-friendly plants. Because of this forest degradation, there is no food for the elephants. So that's why they have a tendency to come and attack the villages. So we have given them other options, and we have trained the villagers to plant some elephant friendly plants such as bamboo, mango, jackfruit, etc. They provide essential food and shelter for elephants and also helps to create a sustainable environment that supports the wildlife in the Dihira project. And to reduce the human elephant conflict, we have installed some solar powered lights near the conflict zone. Basically we are, and additionally we are also doing some lemon fencing. Lemons are lemon trees, and then also we have trained them in beekeeping so that they can produce a beehive fencing there. Can I go to next slide, please? Can I go to next slide? So these are the alternative livelihood options they are taken. People are provided with cows, and then some piggeries they have started, poultry rearing. There is a picture of the poultry you can see. Next slide, please. And another thing we think that is very important, and this is the key step that we have taken, we have empowered the local communities. There is one ecotourism society there called MSK Ecotourism Society. So there is a group of youth. So we have made them the volunteers. So they are also our stakeholders in our venture. So they help us. They also they have extended their helping hands. So whenever we go there, they also have collect people and they train the people, because we do not understand the local language. They are Bodo speaking people, so they can communicate with the residents well. So they are helping in the conservation practices. They have obtained training in beehive keeping, so they are now educating the villagers how to do the beekeeping things. And the lemon and beehive fencing also they are doing. They are actually also helping us in patrolling activities. Next slide, please. So this is the area you can see. We have used the GIS mapping, and using the GIS, we have identified and the main areas, that is the conflict zone. And these are selected for our targeted interventions. As I had said that there are about 10 villages there. We selected certain villages, basically 4 villages we have selected. You can see these are there in the map. The villages are Simla Basti, Shantipur, Madhupur, and Moinaguri. And the elephant corridor is also shown there. And there are the red spots you can see. These are basically the conflict zones where frequent human-elephant conflicts are reported. So what we have done, we have also after identifying the conflict zones, we have also put some solar lights to deter the elephants. And so we are planting some elephant-friendly trees in the forest. People are now coming back to their villages. They have stopped expansion of their paddy fields. They have come back, and now they are putting some elephant deterrent plants in their village boundaries so that elephants can safely roam around in their own corridor. And you can see this, a number of youth sitting there. They are the community volunteers. They are all members of the Ecotourism Society, MSKETS. So they help us in some monitoring and patrolling activities. They engage in surveillance, and they are helping us to prevent the illegal logging and poaching activities. And as we have involved them in our project, so that has helped to develop some ownership. They have developed some guardianship there. So they are helping. So when our project will finish, they will take over. And to conclude, I must say, and what are the future direction? So our project success, it can inspire similar initiatives in other regions. In other regions also the conservation challenges are there. So this strategy can be taken by other portions also. So this approach of the project goes beyond the goal of ecosystem restoration. This is also planned to enhance the social upliftment of the villagers there. So I think our work can sometimes influence the environmental policies towards more collaborative and sustainable approaches. Thank you for patient listening.
Thank you so much. So, any question for Dr. Ganguly? So this is not actually core technological project, but it is the example of how we can go deeper into the conflicted areas and how through science, technology support, we can contribute in these areas.
The only technological thing we are using is the GIS technology to map the elephant corridor, to identify the conflict zones and the areas which need intervention, immediate intervention. And otherwise, it is a societal project. And
oh yeah, your project is very important actually. For the areas like borderline territorial area, this is very important. We have to contribute in these areas, as I think the
this
technical
area
experts
has
will
always
also
been
during that
neglected.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People work on Kaziranga, people work near the Manas National Park, but this area, which is very important and vital, is often ignored. That's why we have taken this small area, only 6.7 kilometers. But I think our project has already created some awareness, and the DFO also is very interested. He also takes stock of the situation, and it seems he's also very impressed with our work. Thank you.
Okay. So any question from online participants? So, ma'am, thank you so much. Thank you so much for delivering this fantastic talk and insights about the restoration elephantic corridors in this kind of area, which is very tough work to do. Dr. Manjoor Shah from University of Kashmir, Srinagar, is the PI of the Department of Biotechnology, and he has done a lot of work for Department of Biotechnology projects. He will be projecting today on ecological restoration of invaded ecosystem. This is also a kind of case study from Kashmir. So thank you so much. I will be sharing your slides, and I request you actually to finish it in 5 minutes somehow, because we are lagging behind time actually by 1 hour
Sure.
around.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Balindra. At the outset, I would like to thank DBT and Dr. Balindra for inviting me for this talk. And I will try to be fast and in time, but maybe you will have to move the slides faster. I had removed the animations later, but I think you have the earlier version.
So I have your earlier slides only. Anyway, kindly finish it. Kindly finish it.
I'll do it. Can you put it in the full mode? Yes.
Please. Yes. Thank you. Please.
So I will be speaking on the ecological restoration of the invaded ecosystems, because we have been working on the biological invasions for last many years. And in order to contextualize this discussions that has been happening since morning, one of the latest reports in 2023 suggests that across the world, most of the countries are having one or the other kind of ecological threat. And whatever water scarcity, or for that matter, the food insecurity we face in the world, or even the most of the conflicts that are there between the regions, are because of these damage that we are doing to the ecological systems. Next, please. So to my understanding, there are three components to it. One, that we have to assess these threats well. First of all, whatever damage that is going on to these ecosystems, regionally or globally, it has to be assessed well. And then in the context of global climate change, we have to predict them and then accordingly have a management strategy. A very recent paper published in Nature Communications puts an emphasis on what ecological restoration can do. And it's a meta-analysis, and this broad-based meta-analysis clearly shows that forest, grassland, and the wetland restoration decreases the global warming potential by a very significant magnitude of more than 300% or 150% and more than 60% respectively. And another report basically that came up of late is this from the IPBES on the biological emergence, because most of the terrestrial and the aquatic ecosystems are threatened by these invasive alien species. And according to this report, you will see that at least 1,215 documented extinctions have happened because of these alien invasive species. And this report makes it emphatically clear that we need to have effective management strategies, and there is an emphasis especially on the restoration of the invaded habitats. And that's why I want to basically emphasize on how we can go ahead with the invaded habitats, because next please. Because in India, we have ecosystems that have been heavily invaded by the ecosystem invasive alien species, and this is a snapshot of the Himalayan states only. If you see state-wise, the number of alien species and the invasive species have been documented, and we have also contributed to this list. Next, please. And one of the figures that basically, when you think about Dal Lake from outside Kashmir, you think that it must be a pretty pristine, clear waters. But these, look at this this invasion by Nymphia mexicana in this system. Whole stretch of this. Next, please. And I was part of this scientific advisory committee of this Dal Lake, and they were very keen basically to remove in eradication of this. And they used to have 500 these laborers every day, paying them 500 rupees, I think, per day. So in 6 months, they could not remove but just a small patch of it. Next, please. And they also, after they wanted to do it actually manually, because they thought with the machines, the fragments remain there, or there is overcompensatory growth. So then they had no option than to use the machines as well. Next, please. And while doing so, I mean, it's a lot of damage. If you look at the economics of this invasion, this is a global report recently published that says, how this economic cost in the aquatic ecosystems because of these biological invasions has grown over the period, over the past decades, and it has crossed 340 billion US dollars. Next, please. And they are still growing. And this was the aquatic systems, but on a larger scale, earlier report that came, I think in 2021, published in Nature, documents globally that there is a damage to the tune of more than $1 trillion in past few decades because of the biological invasions. Next, please. So in India, there has been an assessment how much basically damage, economic damage. This is only the economic damage. We have to understand that it is very hard to basically assess the damage that is caused when you take into account the ecosystem services and the functions especially. This is, to my understanding, this is a hugely and grossly underestimated value, but still it puts the value to more than $8 trillion in past few decades in the Indian context. So this gives us an idea of how problematic these biological invasions are. Next, please. So given this ecological and economic damage, can I have next slide, please? I mean, given this damage, there has been a global emphasis on the management of these invasive species, and India being signatory to this CBD. So we are committed to basically contribute to the targets that have been set by the CBD by 2030 and 2050. And SDGs 15.8 is specifically related to these, managing these invasive species regarding their impact on the planet, people, and prosperity on globally. Next, please. So in this context, next point basically that I was saying is that one is the assessment of this damage. So we know how economically damaging it is. Ecological damage is hard to manage, assess. And second is that in the context of climate change, these biological invasions are predicted to be a far major problem. Next, please. If you look at these, there are a couple of animations. You can go faster here for this animation, and must stop here for a while. So we predicted basically the invasion of invasive species in India, 23 major species in India through that study, that previous slide that you show, in the context of climate change by 2050 or by 2080. And now we know that it's a very horrible scenario across the country. Now, how can we chip in so far the action is concerned, the context of today's webinar and the present decade of ecological restoration? This is one of the species called Anthemis cotola, which is a European native and highly invasive in Kashmir, Himalaya. What we have tried is we have tried the eco restoration for a couple of such species. Next, please. If you look at the treatments, I mean, we have tried a number of treatments. This is done in a different project. And just before the treatment, which includes the cutting of it, the herbicide followed by the herbicidal treatments. This is the first year after it and second year after it, and then downstairs or down here, basically you will see there are the other treatments. This is another species, Conesa canadensis, that we have been working upon for last many decades for its science. Next, please. And we have reported it globally that how it behaves. And next, please. So there's a lot of information that we have generated on the science of the species. But now, after understanding the biology of the species, what are the possibilities of eco restoration? Next, please. You see, this is basically what I wanted to actually say. This is out of the treatments that we gave, and many sorts of different treatments that we actually tried. Fire removal, sword removal, and for that matter, many other things. You can see, if you look at these figures for these different species that we have worked upon, just before application of the treatments. The target species cover was this, and it has significantly reduced, and it has reduced across almost for all the species. So wherever we have given whatever treatments, most of the treatments have worked, and we have now with us. Next, please. If you go to the next, this is just in the slide before that, the co-occurring species. Since the target invasive species reduced because of the treatments, but the co-occurring species significantly increased. Next, please. And this was true across sites, across species, although there were species-specific differences and, of course, the site-specific differences, but largely the differences were very significant when you look at the results. And look at this, for example, all the species diversity indices had a significant increase upon the different treatments. So for the restoration is concerned. Next, please. So we tried also for Phragmites australis, which is the wetland invader, for a huge problem basically in our place here and across the world at many places. So we tried these 5 treatments and we had a significant result. And this we took in a larger context because we had done an earlier project on, for example, this Dal Lake along with the A tree, which was supported by the UNDP, where we find that we have reported that in the report that lake restoration is just more than a conservation imperative. It has, because wetland agriculture in Dal Lake is a very important stake. So how do we restore this system and then we ensure that this wetland agriculture continues? So now comes the part of the DBT project. So then since we restored these, we tried these restoration treatments, and since the biomass that we are harvesting or cutting or getting out of these treatments is a problem, and this is a zero investment biomass otherwise also available in the environment. So we thought and we proposed to the DBT that if we can try to figure out some value-added products from these invasive species, so that a utilization-based management strategy can be adopted for them. And DBT was generous enough to give us this grant, and we are trying to promote the use of these invasive species at the local community level, and also prospecting them for the industry-related products such as plant waxes, oils, papers, many things, and many other bioactives. And next, please. If you look at the outcome of this project so far, next, please, Dr. Balindra. If you look at this outcome of this project, for example, there are 3 institutions we are part of this project, coordinated project. I coordinate this project. This is A3 Sikkim, and we have NIT Srinagar and our university, and we are using a bunch of species. If you look at this, for example, this is from Lantana Kamara, that these briquettes have been prepared, and these are very highly useful briquettes. Their life is at least 1 to 2 hours minimum they burn, and they give basically. Likewise, we have this Phragmites australis, a place problem in our wetland systems. We have produced this paper. This looks green, but if we bleach it, this looks pretty white. It is a very good quality paper. We are working on this. And one of the invasive species that is a problem, for example, in the Gulmarg area, the high altitude lupinus polyphylus, we tried it, basically its seeds, and got the flower, and we are preparing some breads and some food products out of it. Now, if you look at the proximate analysis of these food products, when we compare this lupin with the soybean, or for that matter the black gram lentil, it is far better in terms of, I mean, lower fat content, higher protein content, better water absorption capacity, oil absorption capacity, more flavonoid contents. And we did basically this analysis for a bunch of more species now. In fact, for 7 species, if you look at these, for all these properties, volatile matter, ash, moisture, fixed carbon content, and of course these cellulose and hemicellulose content, they are very good. So here I would like to have your attention why the DBT actually comes into more play. So my understanding is now that if we do this restoration science well, in the context of good science that can drive our restoration efforts, we can have the skill mission of India also linked to it. And I'm pretty sure that you can have some startups, because there's a business model that I thought of could be probably proposed. For example, we have these degraded ecosystems, we have invaded habitats, we have abundant landscapes, we have polluted systems, so on and so forth. If we create an ecosystem where we emphasize on innovations to deal with these, especially from the restoration perspective, how to restore the ecosystem services, how to make sure that we get continued supply of economic goods and aesthetic value of these ecosystems. So we need to have best trainings, we need to give exposure to the working models. And the way forward, to my understanding, therefore, is that we need to continue research in the area of ecological restoration, but learn from the success stories that have been already done elsewhere and put them into practice in our context. And as we see that there is basically a vision by 2047, what we look forward to. So how many degraded ecosystems we want to restore in India, for example, by 2047, for instance, could be a target by the DBT, and probably a call could be sent, and then many people can chip in. So we presented this work recently in an international conference, which was highly appreciated with the acknowledgement of DBT, and I had the acknowledgement of the other team members, with Mahesh, who is going to give basically the next talk. We're also trying to understand now these ecosystems better, the ecosystems structure, their functions, so that the restoration can happen even better way. Thank you very much for your.
Thank you. Any question for Dr. Manju Shah? Any question from online participants? So, thank you. Dr. Shah, I think this is good work, and it could be integrated further with the, I mean, microbial mediated remediation technologies, or whatever presented by Dr. Pandey on rhizomicrobial mediated technology.
Yes.
For restoring these kind of invasive species, because microbes can change the root soil ecosystem very well, and there are potential and possibilities. So I will request you to share your thoughts or some kind of idea in one pager or something on this aspect, how it can be integrated well.
Sure, I'll do that. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much. Ma'am, with your permission, we can take the next presentation. So next presenter is Dr. Mahesh Sankaran. He is professor from National Center for Biological Sciences, Bangalore. It is difficult to summarize his contributions to the ecological sciences. He has lot of experience, and he has done lot of work. Actually, immense contributions he has made in this. Although he's doing DBT supported projects also on ecosystem services and allied areas, he will be sharing today his thoughts and kind of experiences for restoring India's terrestrial ecosystems challenges and recommendations. So, sir, thank you so much for becoming ready on very short notice. Actually, so I will be sharing your slides, and I request you to finish it in.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Balendra. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, perfectly. You are perfectly audible.
Yeah, I'll try and keep it short.
So can you see the slides?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, first off, thank you very much, Dr. Balendra, for asking me to be a part of this webinar. And we've listened to some whole range of wonderful talks on restoration in ecosystems, largely focusing on the nuts and bolts of restoration. But what I thought I'd do is sort of take a broader picture on and look at the the multiple facets of restoration. As we're all probably aware, India has set itself some very ambitious targets for restoration as part of the UN Decade on Restoration and the Bond Challenge, and that is to restore 26 million hectares by 2030, right? So how are we actually going to do this? How are we going to scale up our small-scale efforts to achieve this target at larger scales, and what are the things that we need to keep in mind while doing this? And so I'm going to be largely drawing on a policy document that was published late last year. And this was spearheaded by the PSA's Office of the Biodiversity Collective. And essentially what it involved is a whole series of consultations with restoration practitioners and scientists in the field, with the idea of coming up with some key messages for practitioners and some policy recommendations to guide these large-scale restoration efforts. The report is available freely on the web, and that's the DOI, and I sort of encourage all of you to take a look at it. Next slide, please. Like I said, there was a whole range of different people involved in it, including many people who've been funded by DBT. And what I'll do over the next few slides is just synthesize some of the key messages that came out from this report. Next slide, please. So the first one is that, and this is pretty obvious to most of us here, is that restoration makes sound economic and ecological sense. That the cost of inaction in degraded lands can be as much as 3 times the cost of restoration. And in fact, restoration can generate multiple benefits that's worth as much as 10 times the cost. In other words, we should all be making efforts to restore ecosystems. Next slide. And here's a key point that's also been raised earlier today, is that restoration is a long-term commitment. So these large-scale one-off plantation drives where people try to plant, I don't know, 1 lakh trees in a day or a weekend, or one-time clearing of invasives, more likely than not, they're going to fail, right? Very often. And in many cases, restoration takes years to decades. And so that's something we need to keep in mind. And this is a point that Dr. B.C. Chaudhary raised and was also discussed earlier, that maybe DBT should consider finding ways to support its flagship program by facilitating linkages with other government departments or funders so that it can be restored in the long term. Next slide, please. Third is that the restoration is not the same as tree planting. Tree planting seems to be the in thing right now as a measure to combat climate change. And everybody seems to be planting trees indiscriminately everywhere. And I think it's important to recognize that tree planting is appropriate in deforested and degraded forest areas. So that's what we call reforestation. But in areas that have not historically supported trees in the past, so like places like grasslands and savannas, planting trees is bad. So it's important to differentiate reforestation from afforestation. And afforestation can lead to loss of native biodiversity, many of which are very unique. It can alter water provisioning services. It can impact many other ecosystem services, and it can also threaten livelihoods. So it's very important that we plant the right trees at the right densities and in the right places. Yeah. Next slide, please. Another important thing before people embark on restoration projects, this is another key message that was identified by through these discussions, is that it's critical to identify and address the cause of degradation in the first place. So if overgrazing or fires were the factors that were responsible for degradation in the first place, these need to be addressed before starting the restoration program. Otherwise, if you start a restoration program and don't address these drivers, these factors are going to continue to impact these restoration programs, and which is likely to lead to its failure. Next one, please. And this is another point that's been raised multiple times today by Dr. Chaudhary and also Dr. Krishna Ray, is that restoration efforts should aim to maximize biodiversity, and typically native biodiversity, so should move away from monoculture plantations of exotic species to try and increase to go towards biodiverse plantings in the case of trees. And this biodiversity has many benefits. It can increase ecosystem multifunctionality in that much more, a variety of different services will be provided by biodiverse communities compared to monocultures. It can enhance ecosystem resilience to future climate change. It can reduce invasion or reinvasion by exotic species. And it can also provide co-benefits for biodiversity conservation. And we know we're in the middle of a extinction crisis right now. Next slide. And again, this is a point that was raised by Dr. Ganguly, for example, building partnerships is very important to enhance restoration success in local communities and involving local communities, particularly women and other institutions like the panchayats, gram sabhas, NGOs, businesses, etc. is very important to ensure the long-term sustainability of these restoration initiatives. It has multiple benefits. It can bring in traditional knowledge. It gives us a sense of ownership to the projects, which will help it sustain in the long term. And it can also serve as a form of employment generation. Again, a point that was made earlier. Next slide. And people should be involved in the whole life cycle of the project. Another thing is to plan for multi-use and multifunctional landscapes. We know the pressure on land in India is particularly high, and the many different stakeholders that depend on it. And all of these different stakeholders actually have different expectations from the land. And so it's very important when planning in many areas outside protected areas, if you're planning restoration efforts, we should think about creating these multi-use and multifunctional landscapes that sort of balance the needs of different stakeholder groups. Again, that's something that will ensure the long-term success of these initiatives. And there are many different prioritization exercises that can help here. Awareness generation is key. Again, a point that has been raised multiple times today. And for many reasons, yeah.
There is some disturbance here. Can you wait for 1-2 minutes?
Sure.
We are just starting. It is shut down somewhere. You may start, sir.
Okay. Like I said, awareness generation is key. It has many benefits. For one, it can help change entrenched philosophies that may not be useful for restoration. For example, planting trees is always good, or fire is bad everywhere, and so on. It can encourage participation by stakeholders, as Dr. Ganguly pointed out in her talk. It can foster that sense of ownership, and it can help remove institutional barriers that may be a challenge to restoration. Should I wait? I have just 2 more slides and I can stop after that. I realize we've been running way over time.
Are slides visible to you?
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you move to the next one? Just 2 more points I want to make. And here's the next one, that scaling up restoration efforts from small scales to large scales require that we build these effective networks. And there are many kinds of networks that can help with the scaling up. For one, we need networks of nurseries and seed banks and so on across the country if they're linked, because you need these sources of plants for your restoration efforts. And I think here's some place that DBT can help. Creating these restoration knowledge hubs where there's so many different practitioners. We've heard so many wonderful talks today, but all the information that's being generated needs to be disseminated to practitioners. And so we need to create these restoration knowledge hubs across places. We can, another important thing is generating atlases for native species so that the people know what kind of trees to be planted in which kind of biomes and local geographies, and also bringing strong financial and institutional frameworks for the creation of a restoration economy, right? And next slide. This is my last slide. I think I'll stop here so we're going well. And finally, there is a very critical need for well-designed monitoring schemes to evaluate the progress. Restoration cannot be just a one-time effort and then we just let it take its course. Very often we need well-designed monitoring schemes so that we can evaluate the progress. We can adaptively manage restoration by changing methods. We can look at how the funds are being spent, and we can identify strategies to enhance future restoration successes. I know we're running out of time, so I'll just stop here. These are the 10 points that I wanted to make. And I would really like to thank DBT for all its support, and also many of the other institutions that have helped sort of put this, help the study come together. And I would encourage all of you to take a look at that report if you get the chance. Thank you very much. Sorry, I hope I haven't gone over time. Yeah.
Yes, sir, perfectly. So, is there any question for Dr. Sankaran? Any question from online participants? Anything you want to share? So, thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
It was very interesting talk on maximizing biodiversity and co-benefits, ecosystem resilience, and most important thing I saw is inclusivity. How we can engage the different stakeholders for overall ecosystem restoration. It is very important. So one small thought was there in my mind regarding this urban, urban wastewater bodies. So when we say urban wastewater bodies, it include nala and all. So we will be engaging the microbial or importantly this phytological remediation to remediate the nalas, etc. So actually, we will be addressing two things. On one side, wastewater in itself, it is a we can say degraded ecosystem. We will be restoring that, and if we will be planting along the or through the sides of nalas, etc., we will be conserving biodiversity and will be adding you know another building another ecosystem alongside. So it may have multiple benefits. So what are your thoughts on these directions? Can we have this kind of program, or I don't know exactly what your thoughts are?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are many initiatives in many urban cities that do sort of address these kind of issues. We probably need more, but like you said, it's multi benefits and also co-benefits of biodiversity conservation, right? And it can also just the sides, yeah.
So is there any demonstrated technology already? Somewhere technology is being demonstrated for nalas, like we have in Delhi a big nala, Barakulla nala, and many other sites are there. Is there
I'm
anything
not
being
specifically aware for nalas, but in Bangalore, there's a lot of work on the lakes. And I guess they do address some of these concerns just close to the lakes where the water bodies enter the lakes. But larger scale restoration of nalas, I'm not familiar with, but it's probably there. And it should be there, like you point out. Yeah.
And what do you think? Something algal mediated restoration is there for wastewater ecosystem restoration?
I'm sure the water experts here are better qualified to actually answer that question.
Sorry. So thank you so much, sir, for fantastic insights on restoring degraded ecosystems, or especially terrestrial ecosystem. So, ma'am, with your permission, can we close the meeting with vote of thanks?
Kindly do.
So, thank you so much, all the experts who were ready to deliver the talk on very short notice. I want to make thank you to Professor B.C. Chaudhary for Wildlife Trust of India and regional co-chair of IUCN SSC Adventure Download for his insights on the aquatic and marine ecosystem restoration. He has perfectly described this. And talk by Professor Pandit, it was very fantastic to understand the waste management and how it is relevant to lifestyle. So we can minimize the wastewater and we can manage the waste perfectly. I want to thank you, fantastic insights by Professor Krishna Ray from West Bengal State University, Dr. Piyush Pandey, Assam University Silchar, Dr. Punisloke Bahaduri, Dr. Mosmi Ganguly, and Dr. M. A. Shah from University of Kashmir, and Dr. Mahesh Sankaran. All of us had perfectly shared their thoughts and their experiences and practical knowledge on restoring different kind of ecosystems. I want to make thank you to Secretary DBT for his guidance and support. For Joint Secretary Administration, I want to thank you, Directorate Head Dr. Sandhya Sonoy, who were ready on actually she was also ready on very short notice. So it's a great support, ma'am. So all experts, investigators, and all the DVT officers who has participated genuinely, and a lot of question answers happened. They were very interested, and I think these talks will add some value to your and our routine life also. I want to thank you for all the, directors, especially all authorities and all the participants from autonomous institutes of DBT, where NIPGR and Shia Mohali and NCCS has actively engaged in as listeners, in passive and active listeners both. I want to thank you all the participants who have participated online in live streaming through YouTube, and there was very good response. Many people have taken the place for protect the environment on YouTube. We can see the comments are there. So although these are our initial efforts, but we will try to nurture this webinar, World Environment Day webinar, we want to nurture it as a platform to share the nascent outcomes of the research and innovation towards the protection of our environment. So thank you so much, all of you. We will remain in touch to take forward these discussions ahead. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for delivering the talks. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.